Good evening, everybody. This is the Budget Committee public hearing on the town budget. And at this point, we'll rise to do the Pledge of Allegiance and then start the meeting.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight's meeting has two functions. First is to receive public input on the proposed budget that the town council has put forward to the budget committee for the town of Newmarket for fiscal year 2011 and 12. And at 7:15, we will interrupt ourselves to have the public hearing on the proposed bond, which is warrant article 2, which is for the development of the McIntosh well, to include electric service, wellhead development, piping, land purchase, and treatment plant. And we'll accept public comment at that point on that warrant article. When that's over, we'll go back to the rest of the budget. And that's because that particular warrant article has to have a separate public hearing opportunity, and it was noticed for today at 7:15 p.m. At this point, I'll have the budget committee introduce themselves, and then the folks from the town council and other boards that are here as well. I'm Brian Hart. I'm the chair of the budget committee.
I'm Lorraine Caprioli, vice chair.
Drew Kiefaber.
Leo Fielder. Jane McLevin.
Judy Ryan. Roseanne Clark.
Larry Pickering.
Jack Fitzgibbon.
Kelly Foster.
I'm Eric Waterman, Chairman of the Town Council.
Mike LeBranch, Vice Chair.
Ed Winowski, Town Administrator.
And Al Zink.
He's a town councilor, and he's on the budget committee.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. I don't think these are on. I can barely hear you.
Is it working?
Yep.
No, Chris is shaking his head no.
Okay, folks in TV world, if it's not working, we're sorry. And TV can hear you, but it's not here. Oh, okay. Good. All right. Now it was the first article. Sorry. First article for the public hearing is not necessary for the hearing itself, but it's to choose all necessary town officers. Just so folks know out there that there are 3 openings for the town council for a 3-year term, 1 for a 1-year term. For the budget committee, there are 3 for 3-year terms and 1 for a 1-year term. Town moderator is 1 for a 1-year term. Planning board, there are 2 openings for 3-year terms and 1 for a 1-year term. Trustees of the trust funds, there is 1 for a 3-year term, and the treasurer, 1 for a 3-year term. I think we should just go ahead with the public hearing on Article 2.
Yep.
And I'll read the article, and then I imagine there might be some presentations from the town council or staff regarding it, and then we'll have public comment. Article 2, bond for the development of the McIntosh well to include electric service, wellhead development, piping, land purchase, and treatment plant. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,370,250 gross budget for the development of the McIntosh well to include electric service, wellhead development, piping, land purchase, and treatment plant, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $3,370,250 of bonds and notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, New Hampshire RSA 31:1 at sequential as amended, and to authorize the town council to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon. Further, to authorize the town council to apply for, negotiate, contract for, seek, and do all things necessary to obtain such federal and state grants and aid, contributions, assistance, and to participate in the state revolving fund, RSA 486-14, established for this purpose, as may be available, and to adopt any resolution relating thereto, and to take such other actions as may be necessary to effect the issuance, negotiation, sale, and delivery of such bonds or notes as shall be in the best interest of the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire. This one requires a 2/3 ballot vote to pass. And it was recommended by the town council by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, Ed, do you want to
Have
have Sean
Sean.
talk about that?
Yep.
What I'd like to do tonight is I'd like to just give a brief synopsis of the past and where we began and how we got to where we are. It's just a brief little statement. In the late 1990s, the water level at the Bennett and Sewell wells had dropped significantly. In 2000, the Water Department began to get the surface water treatment plant ready for the operation. On October 15, 2001, the Bennett well shut down under low water cutoff. The low water cutoffs were set at 1.5 feet above the screens. As the week progressed, the well shut off more frequently. On October 21, 2001, the Bennett and Sewell well shut down 6 times. At this time, it was decided to run the surface water treatment plant Monday through Friday and operate the wells on weekends. Modifications were made to the plant to allow the plant to operate full-time 24/7 by January 2002. In 2002, the town adopted a water conservation ordinance because of the depleted well water levels. Also, the surface water plant is not able to treat water with high color, so after a substantial rain event, the water department is forced to shut down the water plant and rely on the wells. Also, it was to keep the water tank level at an adequate level that ensures adequate pressures and fire protection. The tank must be kept 3/4 full or 45 feet. This ordinance included a 4-stage program depending on what was happening with the system. Stage 1 was a voluntary water conservation. Stage 2 was a mandatory odd-even outside water use. Stage 3 was a mandatory 2-day lawn watering. And Stage 4 was an outside water ban. The surface water treatment plant was shut down at the end of 2004. The plant could not meet safe drinking water standards, and the wells had recovered substantially from what they had depleted. In 2005, the town of Newmarket hired Emery and Garrett Groundwater to do a town-wide search for bedrock wells. In 2007, the McIntosh and Tucker well sites were identified as possible locations for bedrock wells. In October of 2009, the wells were pumped for 8 days for drawdown, water quality, and permitting. The town pumped the McIntosh well in the spring of 2010 an additional 56 days for an additional water quality assessment. A qualification-based RFQ process was used to choose an engineer to review the data and prepare a preliminary design report. The town selected Weston Sampson engineers to perform this work. Concurrently, the AECom engineers was selected to evaluate the town's water system and develop a water capital improvement program. The plan concluded that the town is in need of more water supply. The McIntosh well will improve the supply deficit, but additional supply will need to be developed. If the town develops the Tucker well site, the safe pumping capacity will nearly meet the projected 2030 maximum day demands. The plan listed the McIntosh well as the #1 priority. The budget for the McIntosh well is $3.37 million. The budget includes the purchase of some land for a water treatment plant, the construction of a water treatment plant, installation of water main, horizontal drill, directional drill to get water pipe underneath the wetlands, some wellhead work, treatment pilot study, access road construction, electrical service to the water plant, and final easements for the protective radius. This also includes engineering and contingency. I'd like to emphasize that this is a gross budget, that we hope that it's the worst-case scenario, that there are still a lot of decisions to be made, and those decisions will be made in a public arena at a town council meeting, such as what kind of building will be put up, what kind of treatment, but the hope is to come in at less than that number.
Thank you, Sean. Want me to-
Yeah.
Right.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, point of order?
No, go ahead, Mr. Bottom.
I don't
It's a summary.
No, are we right now having the public hearing for Article 2?
Yes.
I don't believe you can have a public hearing for an article unless you have a quorum of the council present. It's not the Budget Committee having the public hearing, it is the town council.
Call them up.
It would be my experience from open space bonds with towns, if there's a mistake in the bond process, you have to start over. After the bond's passed, we don't want to have a second vote on this in sometime this summer, so, we can, if someone wants to make some calls and get a fourth person down here so we don't have that, that might be prudent, in my opinion. I would say that that's your decision. If you'd like me to do that, I think that makes sense, but.
You would have known that, for God's sakes.
All right, I guess at this point, we're going to adjourn the public hearing for that and see if we can get a fourth. Thank you, Roseanne.
You're welcome.
I certainly would.
It's not on the road, no, it's quite a ways out. I think it's still in the sense of, since this will be discussed by the Budget Committee, let's continue the presentation of the information about it, which all the people here, if they want to comment during the public hearing for that particular article that will be separately held by the council concurrently with this meeting, they'll be able to do that once the fourth member of the council is here. So I think we should have additional information from the council presented, and the Budget Committee will assume this as part of the discussion about Article 2, which is part of our discussion tonight as well. So,
Okay, sure.
does that make sense?
Oh,
I don't think you can do that legally.
Unless we,
We're having a public hearing on Article 2 for the Budget Committee, right?
all right.
It's part of this agenda for tonight. So why?
But doesn't it have to go through the council it's crazy because we're doing both of them tonight.
That's not a decision for me to make about whether it goes before or after. The council has to hold a public hearing. They'll figure that out.
We'll have to repeat the
We won't have to repeat our decision or action on it tonight, no.
well, I don't see how we can discuss it if we don't have a quorum of the council here.
Because it's not, we are shifting back to the Budget Committee portion of the evening.
okay, probably a motion to put
Article-
aside the public hearing and then go into a meeting with the budget.
Well, essentially, I'm not sure how we could have a motion because the council doesn't have a quorum here.
Oh,
So I think we should all be on the page of the town being able to do its business and say, this has been the Budget Committee's meeting from the start of tonight. And then instead of the council having their public hearing at 7:15, they'll do it at some point tonight. And if that's legal or not, Roseanne, it's not for you to judge or make a comment on, it's for them to figure out with their attorney
Well-
after this meeting.
Well, in all fairness, I mean, I feel either the chair or at least the town administrator should have known ahead of time that a quorum was needed. Should we just, for
That
legal...
type of comment is
for legal
not helping us tonight, so don't make it again.
Do you think maybe we should just jump to another article and leave this one?
I don't
Just in
understand
case.
how that helps us.
Okay.
We've started the discussion on it. Let's keep going. There's people here that are probably interested in this article as well as the budget. The rest of our agenda tonight is pretty flat in terms of impact to the town or interest. I think it's the first two articles. So I would like to continue. If the committee feels differently, here's your opportunity about process. I heard Roseanne. Are those, Mr. Fitzgibbon? And then Mr.
So
Gomes?
as far as the public hearing is concerned, there's no public hearing. In other words, are you complying with the public hearing aspect of the public hearings as they are, or not?
My job as Budget Committee Chairman is to comply with the requirements of the Budget Committee, which is to hold a hearing on the 6 warrant articles tonight. Jack, it's a fair question. I can't answer it. None of us here can answer it.
You gotta have a.
The
public-
council has to answer that question and get their attorney involved.
We're going to try to get a fourth council here and then have...
Yeah, I know, I understand that, and that's good, but the thing is that I thought Brian said that we were going to let this go, this top page, first page, and start with the Budget Committee aspect of it, and then go back at a later time, an hour or so. So why not just do that, predicated on them getting another fourth man?
That's what we're doing.
Well,
But
Is-
our
isn't-
first
Well,
item
you
on
say
the
that,
agenda
put it that
is
way.
Article
Fine with
2.
me.
That's all.
Article 2 is still part of the Budget Committee's
Work.
work to do tonight.
Yeah, that's all
Separate
right.
from the
That's all,
public
that's all.
hearing.
And
Well, I
instead
know
of
that.
having another presentation, let's just have the full discussion from the committee and the council's input, and then go to get the public's comment to us on Article 2, and then go to Article 3, et cetera, tonight. Mr. Glenn?
I'm confused at the moment. Is this actually the Budget Committee's meeting or the Council's meeting?
It's a Budget Committee's meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And all the articles were already discussed through the council already, right?
Yeah, they've all have recommendations on it.
They've all had recommendations. So therefore, I don't think the Budget Committee can speak to a warrant article that has not been voted on by the council yet.
They have been voted on.
Has been voted.
The numbers are on there.
The numbers are on there.
Article 2
this one
has
here.
a recommendation of the
Okay.
council.
Okay.
Next page.
Bonds, for whatever reason, or any state law, require a separate public hearing. So, no matter what the issue is.
That's right.
Okay, so,
Continue with the Budget Committee's process.
Correct.
Not the council's process.
and we welcome any additional input that council members might have, or Mr. Craig, Sean, last name, sorry.
What I'd like to add to what Sean said was, last week, those of you that have been watching the council process, talking about water, Mr. Leo Fillion has had a lot of good questions, a lot of concerns about what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done with the new well. Last week, Vice Chair LaBranch and I had a meeting with Sean, Town Administrator, our consultants. There was actually a resident, an ex-resident of town, a person that grew up in town who is an expert in the water delivery field. Mr. Fillion was there. We had a lot of discussion. To make a long story short, this well, the water quality in this well is not good. It meets, just barely meets federal and state standards, but drinking this water straight out of that well there's probably going to be a taste issue, there's color issues. So we had a lot of discussion about what the best approach was, and to make a long story short, I firmly believe, and I think Councilor LaBranch believes, that at this point in time, we need to plan for treating this water. We have two options. Don't treat the water, put it right into the water tank. If we do that, there's going to be a serious degradation in the current standard of water that people are used to. We could do that, see what kind of complaints we get, see if people complain about the taste, see if water heaters corrode and burn out. I personally don't think that's the right way to treat the people that are on our water system. I don't think we should be playing Russian roulette with the quality of water we have. We know the water quality in that well is not great, so I firmly believe that we need to treat it. And I think that was a general consensus at that meeting. And I know Leo had a lot of questions at that meeting, and I think his questions were answered. He may not agree with everything, but from my perspective, it's money well spent. And that would give us a well that if we treat this water, and then if anything happened to our other wells, we can use this well. If we don't treat the water coming out of this well, and our other two wells have problems, we still can't use this water because it's not a real high-quality water. So I think for long-term planning and for the water users, I certainly think that this is money well spent to get the best water quality that we can.
I just wanted to add, there's several members of the council that are on the Budget Committee from past years, and a couple other things in terms of the history of what we tried is we spent money evaluating taking the water treatment plant and upgrading it. That was $10 to $15 million back in 2004, I think it was. So that'd be more money now. We evaluated Falls Brook, but my understanding of the situation with Falls Brook was it wasn't enough quantity, and the state would likely not permit it because of the impacts. I know Leo was unhappy with that conclusion from DES. And then this well process has been underway for about 4 or 5 years, so I'm happy to see it come forward because it is part of the long-term solution. But I think it's important that people understand that it's not like this has been something that's suddenly come up. It's been underway for 9 years, trying to come up with a better water quality source. Ms. Caprioli?
I was at the meeting where you explained the process, but can you just give me a quick refresher about how you're going to treat the water? I know we're not building a $15 million plant, but how it's going to be?
We haven't really come upon a treatment process yet. That's still up to be decided. But one of the process that came about, that was chosen through the preliminary design report, was the electrodialysis removal. And I'm going to let Jeff from Weston Sampson give you, if you want, the intricacies of it, of how it's done. But to cut it short, it actually produces a water that is pretty close to the water that we're getting from the Bennett and Sewell well.
After this treatment?
Yes. I mean, but if you're really concerned about how the treatment, if Jeff wants to come up on how it works, he can explain it to you.
Okay, thanks.
Jeff, you want to come up? Yeah.
That'd be helpful, Budget Committee members? Would it be helpful to have him discuss in more detail? I'm not seeing yeses or nos. Okay, yes.
Me personally, yes.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
approximately half the cost.
Yes.
Electrodialysis reversal is a process that has alternating layers of charged sheets, and similar to blood dialysis, it pulls constituents across the membrane. So you have high salt water and your other constituents on one layer, and on the next layer is your clean water. And then your next level on top of that goes back to your high constituents, back to your clean. And what it does is, with the charges across the plates, it pulls it through the membrane, and then it allows the clean water to continue on while a waste is produced of the constituents that you don't want to see. And about every half hour, that process is reversed, and the side that used to have the high constituents then becomes your clean water, and by doing that, it eliminates fouling along those individual sheets. It's a little bit of a unique process for New England in the fact that this is a little bit of a brackish water. It has high chlorides, high salt. We don't see a lot of that within New Hampshire, but it's a proven commodity throughout the industry, and it works really well for the water that you're seeing within the McIntosh well.
Is there any other towns in the area using this process?
There's no electrodialysis reversal plants right now in New Hampshire, primarily being is that the constituents that you normally see are iron, manganese, and arsenic within the groundwater. This is a unique water, being a bedrock source and having the high chlorides. It's just not a typical water that you see within New Hampshire.
What about New England? No?
I don't believe there's any in New England, no. The ones that you generally see, they're in Virginia, there's a lot in Florida, there's numerous installations in California and Utah. It's used on the islands, the Caribbean islands, a lot because it's just the saltwater intrusion that they have down there within their groundwater supply.
Ms. Clark?
How would the treatment of this, with this process to the well water, that will not decrease the sodium in the water, will it, the salinity?
It will.
It will.
It does. It's one of the few treatments that will do that.
It will really, will it get rid of it completely?
Not completely, no. The levels to which it removes are in the preliminary design report, and if you'd like, I can go grab that
Yes,
from my chair.
I would. Because of the fact, the government just stated, I don't know how much sodium will be in the water if we use that well, it's the salt.
There's sodium in the wells we have now.
But
It's
how?
just at very low levels, I believe at about 30 milligrams per liter.
That's the wells we have now, Sean?
Yes, I believe.
Taste it.
It would drop it down to about 77 milligrams per liter.
And how much does the McIntosh well have per
Well, that's
liter?
what the McIntosh would bring it down to, and typically we're seeing...
No. You said our other wells have 30 milligrams
Have
per liter
approximately,
now.
yes.
What does the McIntosh well raw water have now?
Oh, yep,
There's a range on that one.
yeah. One moment.
So
It's up at about 250, but I want to give you an exact number.
I was going to say, I thought it was around 220 to 250.
220 to
When it fluctuates when we're pumping.
In between that
Yeah,
220
so
to
if
250.
you, when it comes on, it's much higher, but as you pump for a longer period of time, it does drop.
And what will this process do, the reversal process, do to that amount?
According to what the reports, the preliminary report, because that's part of what's in the budget, is to do a pilot study to make sure that we get what we want. It's around 77 milligrams per liter.
77 per liter. And does that exceed the daily recommended amount of sodium? I know the government just said people should go from a teaspoon of salt a day to a half teaspoon. What's that an equivalent to a teaspoon of salt?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how much water you consume.
I mean, normal intake?
Yeah, I don't know what the average person consumes for water. I mean, that's a tough, because some people drink more water than others. I mean, so I can't speak to what the daily recommendation is for
Yeah.
health purposes are.
Are there any guidelines with water supply as to how much you should have? What's the cutoff level for sodium in water?
The secondary standard is at, hold on, let's get you an exact number. 250.
250 is the, yeah, you got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Actually, for chloride, it's 250. The World Health Organization has an advisory based on taste at 200.
So it's well below that.
Yes.
It's well
And it's
below.
going to be blended with the water we have, so it's going to
It'll
be the
end-
average of the two. If one well has
Exactly.
30, that has 70, we're going to end up with the water that has 50.
Yes.
Very
If you
good,
do a
thank you.
50/50 blend.
Mr. Fillion?
The secondary standard state of New Hampshire is between 100 and 250. That's what is allowed, between 100 and 250. And the extended pump test that they did up the well, 51 pump, it went from 250 to 170, and after pumping for 35 days. And then after it stopped, it climbed back up again, but that's how much it dropped in the 34 days, from 250 to 170, which is halfway between the 100 to 250 range that is allowed by the secondary standards for the state of New Hampshire. Those are what they call, not advisory, but aesthetic standards. Most states don't require secondary standards, but New Hampshire is one of the that does require the secondary standards as a limit. Just the primary standards are required by the EPA.
Any other questions for Mr. Gregg or the consultant at this point? If not, we can go on to the public hearing. Ms.
I
Caffrey.
just wanted to share, when Jeff came up to speak and said he was from Weston and Sampson, I'm just sharing that. I'm going to have to abstain from the rest of this conversation because we're working for you guys right now. And I didn't realize you guys were consultants.
Brian,
Yes.
I have a question that's not related directly to this gentleman standing here. It's related to this issue.
That's
but
fine.
not directly. My question is, in the $3.5 million bond, you said you don't know what the cost is to do the treatment. Is that put into that whole $3.5 million bond, but yet you don't have a cost factor yet?
I think what Sean was trying to say is the actual type of treatment hasn't been determined yet. There's several different alternatives for treatment, but the,
So that's additional cost to the $3.5 million?
Wait.
No, it's
The cost
included.
of the 3.37 million is to put in the EDR treatment, all the way.
Okay, I guess I'm confused to how you can put a figure in there when you don't know what the figure is.
Well, when we put this number in, the treatment hasn't been decided.
Right.
So we chose the EDR treatment as the one that we would put in the cost.
Okay, and
So-
what was that cost to that 3.5 million? Do you have an idea what that was?
The biggest part of the cost was the building, which was about, if I can recall, it was about, I want to say it was about $800,000 more.
The treatment plant and the treatment process is about half of the 3.3 million. That's,
Yeah.
and you want to make the right process, but you need to put a budget figure in here. You put a placeholder figure in that's realistic based on the process that you think you're going to go with, but you're not going to choose the process till you do some of the tests
Exactly.
and the pump test early on. But if you go forward and this process is selected, there's enough money to implement this.
Correct.
That was my point. I do have another question. With this $3.5 million bond,
It's 3.37.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
$2 million
Yeah, I mean, it's just
It's growing.
The question here is, who is going to actually pay for that? Is it the taxpayers or the water users?
Water users.
Right now, the water users, yeah.
So the water users are going to pay the $3.5 million on that
The
bond?
3.37 million,
3.37,
yeah.
okay, on
They'll-
that bond.
That would be the most that would be bonded. If it comes in at 3 million, the water users will be required to pay the $3 million bond.
Okay.
Yes.
So the average taxpayer who lives out in the countryside and has a well, they're not going to have to pay for this?
Exactly.
They pay for their own.
Yeah, I know that, yeah. But I didn't know whether it was being funded through the tax base.
It's getting funded through the water users.
That's the question.
Bills.
Yeah. Okay.
The enterprise
Unfortunately,
fund.
we don't have a water district, fortunately or unfortunately, in which you would have water voters have a separate meeting.
Yeah.
So it's only, everybody in town gets to vote on it, even if they don't actually have to pay for it.
That's why I'm surprised there aren't more people here to discuss that. And my final question is, let me just read it to myself here again. Oh, I know when I was on the council, and that was 3 years ago, we had some discussion regarding possibly, the discussion, I had brain thought here, I have to go back. We were told on the council and public hearings that at that time, there was plenty of water everywhere. We were concerned about the mills coming online. There was plenty of water for the mills. We don't have to worry about this. There's plenty of everything. I'd like to know what exactly changed that now we have to go, and this was on my mind always when I was on the council. What really changed that we have to go and look at this now when we're supposedly all set with the mills coming online?
I wasn't involved in those discussions back then, so I can't speak directly to what was said. But what I can say is that prior to 2005 or 2004, when we actually were running the water treatment plant, we actually had more strict standards come out for surface water plants. Or actually any other plants. We've had the disinfections byproducts rule, which what happens with that is when you add chlorine to the surface water plant, there's actually organics in the water, and they react with the water, and they actually create compounds that are hazardous to people's health. And we are not able to meet the disinfection byproducts rule with that plant. And some of the other problems we had reaching with that plant is there was also standards that came out on meeting turbidity levels at the end of filter runs, which we were having a hard time meeting. And to actually, so right now, that plant cannot meet safe drinking water standards without a major overhaul to it. And that overhaul is going to be very expensive. It'd be much more expensive than actually developing a couple wells. And Brian is correct. I mean, I would probably say that it was probably $15 to $20 million now to upgrade that, and it's just not cost effective, especially once you look at the operational costs that come into play with electrical and operators. It's a very high expense. So you basically lost a large source of water that the town actually had access to.
Okay, I have a follow-up question on that, what you
Yeah.
just said. With all of this being done, and we were told there wasn't such an urgency back then, but you explained that, is there a possibility, because of the economy, and somehow there were people in this town, in my opinion, I'm not speaking for the budget committee, but there are people in this town that have the perception that we have a checkbook and we just keep on writing checks here and there and everywhere else. So the question is there a possibility that we could just purchase the land and do nothing else and wait another year?
Can I address that?
yes, you can.
Whoever wants to. Okay.
That's a valid question, Dana. What
That's
happens in a year time, though, is things get more expensive. We do not have enough water. We do not meet the state standards. If one of our wells go down, we cannot provide enough water. So I think we're just playing a game. If we don't,
Well,
the sooner we get this well on board, the better off we are. I mean, I understand the concern, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for the people paying the water bill, but it's better than having no water. And if one of our wells goes down, we're not going to be able to provide the people with users. Our water supply is so short that the state has actually talked about imposing a restriction on allowing us to have new users tie into our system. So it's not something that has happened recently. This has been ongoing for several years.
Dana, I can speak to this. Back in the late 90s, Doug Heath from the EPA, because I was involved in it, did a study on our 2 wells. And he basically said, the report says, we are over-pumping our 2 wells. Those 2 wells are not designed to do what we're doing to them. So that's what he said on his study. So, I mean, and we just did a major CIP with AECom, who looked and evaluated our entire water system. And they came to the conclusion that we do not have enough water supply. So, number 1 on their CIP list, and it's in the report if you want to read it, is that we should bring the McIntosh well online. We are listed with the state of New Hampshire as being short on water. And Rick Skarinka did say in the meeting with us that, we've been considering putting a moratorium on you guys because you don't have enough water, but we're not doing it because we know you've been working towards developing more water resources.
So if this bond does not pass, for whatever reason,
Yeah?
what is the contingency plan? And when I say that, I'm concerned about the mills are going online now, and
Yeah.
if we don't pass this bond, what happens there? And we don't have enough water.
Yeah.
So we're bringing on another 120 units.
Conservation. It'll go to stage 4, we'll go to water bans. We'll try and just limit the water to consumption uses only. It's actually not even up to me, it's actually it's up to the council, or whoever makes those decisions when we get to those positions.
Okay. I'm concerned because when I was on the council, I don't know whether we're misled or the information was different than what it is today, but I know specifically we were told there was ample water, don't worry about it, into the future, the mills can come online. And Mrs. Kwok also acknowledging that that's
Yeah.
what we were told, so I'm concerned.
And
Hold on a
And I
second.
understand the
I think
state
there's
standards have changed and
But
everything.
Dana, I think that you're glossing over those years on the council, because we started
I'm what?
this glossing over what happened on the council. We started the process of finding a new water source in 2002.
No, I
Fun,
agree.
it was because we
I agree,
needed to
Brian.
supplement the source. So
We've been working on this 9 years.
there might, but I think it's unfair to suggest that this is a new situation, or that we didn't know about it, or the council didn't. The past council members all were aware that we needed to supplement the water supply. You might question whether this is the right one to do it, but I don't think anyone's questioning, I don't think you are either, that we need more water. We need more water. I also thought, Sean, I think you should just be careful. If we had the mill come online, we'd only really have a problem if we had a drought.
Yeah.
Because we had the
Yes.
drought in 1999. That's when the wells went down. We're
Yes.
pumping them at a rate that's not sustainable given historic droughts that will happen again. And if we had a problem with one,
that would be a-
we'd be in big trouble.
And that would be a problem whether the mills were online or not.
Right.
yes,
But
yes.
Well, that's my point. If this doesn't pass,
I think it would be helpful, and I know there's some other hands, if we had an estimate of the water users' impact from the bond if it was passed and funded at the full level. Do we have that?
We do, in fact. Based on some quick calculations, taking the bond value, assuming a 20-year payback and a 4% interest rate and 2,000 users, it comes out to $151.61 per user per year.
per year.
For the first year. That value will decrease over the course of the 20 years. The last year would be approximately $88 per user.
Okay.
And those are all
I actually
comes.
did the numbers, and I actually can do them pretty quickly, because I did them on a 30-year bond.
Sure.
And
A
it
different
came-
number.
It came out to 190,000 bond payment per year. And then I just took a quick, divided it by the total water consumption by the 2009, which was, because we bill in 100 cubic feet, and it's $1.16 per 100 cubic feet, and the average single and two-family home uses 58 units. So it'd be, the increase would be $1.16 times 58 is what I calculated out.
So $75.
75 bucks.
And
I believe that.
So somewhere around $75 to $100 for the average
And-
family, average user.
And we've talked about it, there is actually money that's being set aside in the CIP for this. So, and I know Ed's talked about possibly using some of that money and reducing CIP to reduce the overall impact to the users.
So I saw Jack's hand and Larry's hand and Judy's hand. I don't know who was first, so Jack.
My question is, in the figures you had, does that include the assessment that was just put on our bills recently, the last few quarters, of $50 a year for service fees?
All I did, Jack,
That's
is,
not it. No, I'm just asking. a
no,
question. Then that means that $50 is still there. I mean,
Sure.
it's just been put on. Now, I frankly don't understand the reason, but,
That's best addressed to the council at a council meeting.
yeah, well, they should know about it if any of them are living on the lines.
I know a couple of them are.
All right, anyway, the other
That-
thing I
okay.
wanted to ask that you had explained, I always was under the impression that, not the impression, in fact, I remember reading the meter there back when I was working for the light company, that there is an artesian well connected with the Fallet's Brook. Is that right, Leo? And so specifically, what I'd like to know, that particular source was pumping enough water to run the mills. It was 500,000 gallons a day.
It was tested, and it was a surface contamination issue.
Well,
It was
that's
drawing
where I'm
water
going.
in
When did this happen, that
2004
if it was
or
being pumped from below, and it seems to me the source itself is in close proximity to the well up in the plains, on a straight line basis.
The tests that were done on the Fallet's Brook wells, we drilled wells out there, and we tested the well that was next to the Fallet's Brook, and it was drawing water from Fallet's Brook into it and causing contamination issues.
So that there was,
It's not connected geologically to the Sewell wells in a way that you would think. That it's more connected to the stream, is what I understand. And Leo, you've read the reports as well.
it's not
Yeah, it was
drawing.
110-gallon wells, what we had in there, because the cover hadn't been put on it when it was last used.
That's
Stuff
right.
had fallen in, and it was contaminated, but it could have been pumped out and cleaned. But
Right.
at the time, because the way it was just abandoned without capping it off or anything, there was contamination, but it was only 110-gallon minute wells, the Sewell well. I mean, the
Okay, so does that help? I mean, it would be best if we could focus our time on this particular proposal,
I can appreciate that.
but
I
hopefully that
happen
helps
to be
answer it.
on the lines, and I focus on that myself quite heavily,
Okay.
especially at my age. Okay?
Any more questions? All right, Mr. Pickering?
Back to Dana's original question, I believe he asked what happens to the mills if this bond does not pass, as far as having enough water supply for their needs. And I believe, and it was out there for years, that there had been a capacity put aside for that future use. And has something changed since then, a drought situation, or that's thrown that off, that there won't be enough water available?
Basically, the consumption of the mills is, on a peak day, is estimated to be at 37,000 gallons a day when they're at full capacity. That, if you actually factor in what our wells pump at 500 gallons a minute, our wells would end up pumping for that amount of time. That was always said that that is there, and that would take us from where that would impact us the most is not on an average day kind of basis. It would affect us the most on a peak day basis, trying to keep the tank full.
Judy?
Other than the mills, are there any plans to extend water users within the current estimated 2,000?
There is no plans. I will say on the flip side, if you look at the mills actually, when you calculate out how many units are there and what their water usage is, it's quite a sizable income to the water and sewer department.
Right, but looking
But
at,
otherwise, we have not looked at extending any water or sewer, any water mains.
just to follow up on that, looking at the mill situation, which is already guaranteed as being able to have enough water to use, we're looking at, for completion of the entire complex within a 6 to 7 to 8 year timeline.
Yeah.
So the question to me is this necessary to do it this year?
I think it's important to, because costs are getting very expensive and things are changing all the time. I think and where we are, because we do experience some water quality issues because we cannot flush our mains. And some residents can speak to that, because we don't have enough water quantity right now to go out and flush our mains. And what flushing mains does is it cleans out all the sediment and everything because you're not getting a good velocity in your mains. And it would help some people's water quality drastically if we were able to do that. So I would feel that it was important.
Anybody that hasn't asked a question yet, just because I missed hands before? Okay, Roseanne?
So if this went online, if the bond got approved, how long would it take to get the Macintosh up and running?
What I envision, we would not be able to do, we'd go to design, we would not be able, the earliest we could start construction would be next year.
And how long until it would be to our taps?
It would probably, if we started next year in the summer, it would probably be ready to go in the fall. Would that be a
So
safe
say
bet?
about a year and a half to 2 years?
Yes.
Okay. When and if it passes and that went online, would we then have enough water to flush the mains?
Yes, because we'd be going from, we'd be up around 800 gallons a minute, which would
So we'd be able to flush?
would substantially increase what we could pump into the tank to keep it full enough so we could flush the mains.
For a day's reserve.
Yeah.
Would we be able to put the other two wells back to pumping 12 hours a day like they were intended to and not for 24 hours?
They would be, right now, the average pumping time for those wells is around 15 to 16 hours.
So you cut it down a bit.
In the summertime, obviously, they're a lot higher
Higher.
but on average, so if you look at it that way, you're probably looking at a 9-hour day for each well.
And with this well online, will we be able to meet the disinfectant byproduct standards?
Yes.
We will.
Yes.
And did you say we have capacity for the mills right now? Or we don't?
Right now, we've committed to saying that we have capacity to.
How can you commit to say we have capacity when the state told us that we're short on water?
Because
That's a
far.
planning board,
Yeah.
that was already decided by the planning board, it's not an
Well,
issue for tonight.
I know that. They said at the time that we had $35,000
Roseanne,
extra capacity.
it's not germane to this topic. We have a
It
long
is-
night ahead of us.
In my mind, it is, Mr. Chair, because the public has to know all the details.
The public has to know the
if-
details about this warrant article, not about every decision that's been made about the water process.
And as to whether or not.
ones that you did not agree
It
with.
is an article that we should approve or disapprove at the ballot, and with all the information that we have. And I think
So-
the public should have as much information as
It has been stated that the mills have water permits.
They have permits, but it's
Which-
not
and they-
saying,
And whether or not they have the capacity, if someone's making their decision based on whether this bond, we should pass this bond so we can have water for the mills, I don't think anyone's
no.
making a decision that way.
no, I wouldn't take it that way. If I was home listening to this, I'd say, well, whether we have the mills online or not, the state stated we are short on water without the mills even being online. So therefore, it might be advantageous to people who want this bill to have that out in the public. So I think information something like that should be out there. If the state is saying now that we are short on water, whether the mills are
Wait,
coming on or not.
And that's been stated.
that-
All the information's out there. You're not making any more information known. You're expressing discontent with decisions the planning board made about granting water permits and approvals.
I'm not stating any discontent. I am stating facts.
What's the question?
The question was, how can we say that we have capacity when we're short on water for the mills? So, I mean, in my mind, that would indicate that we need another well.
Okay, so it's more of a rhetorical question, because I'm not sure how Sean could actually answer that question. That was my point.
Well, you know,
We have enough water, we don't have enough capacity, according to the state. We have enough water under normal circumstances. If we
Under
have a
normal
drought-
circumstances, we do have enough water, but, you know, we are short. I mean, if you look at all the state standards.
Are there any more questions before we get to the public's portion of the evening? Leo?
Did anyone do any tasting of this water up there as you were pumping it?
Not me.
There was a couple people that took a swig of that water.
I didn't hear you answer.
There was a couple people that maybe sampled that water, yes.
They tasted it after the 53-day pump testing?
Yes.
When the sodium and
Yes.
chlorine and everything was way down within state limits?
Yes,
And they're still alive?
I'm still standing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr.
Was
Fitzgibbon?
there any, if any at all, of the original constituents affecting the taste of the water afterwards?
It
What-
tasted salty, and at the end, you had a different kind of taste in your mouth.
So how long am I going to have this different kind of taste in my mouth?
Depends what kind of
For
treatment you
3
put in.
years? Or
I don't know.
what's that again? I missed.
It depends on what you do for treatment. I don't know. I can't
I
answer
use
that.
Colgate, but I mean.
Yeah.
The idea is to treat it so you never have that taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
So this warrant article would have the funding to build the treatment plant, to treat the water?
Correct.
So it wouldn't taste like that?
Correct.
Okay, and this thing that's important to keep in mind. We don't want to confuse what it is now versus what it will be if we actually proceed with this plan. Any more questions or clarifications from the council? Did you want to clarify anything that's been communicated so far? You don't have to, just offering.
I had one other quick
Okay,
question.
go ahead.
With the pumping continuing, has the salinity gone down or up?
It went down, but then it bounces back up after you shut the water off, after you turn the pump off.
So do the studies show that with consistent pumping, the salinity will stay lower?
But every time you shut it off, it would come back up. Not as high.
Yeah.
Let me interrupt you. Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the meeting we had last week, the water department expert, basically, this well would run probably 8 hours a day. So it'll pump, the salinity would go down a little bit, it would draw back in. We talked about, do you just pump it and try to get rid of the salt? The response was that because of the underlying geology associated with this well, that the salinity could stay the same, relatively the same, for 100 years. Could be 10 years, could be 100 years, could be forever. There's a lot of swamps with a lot of muck that are associated with this that apparently have a lot of salinity in them. So, to answer your question, we asked that question, there's no easy answer to say that if we use this well for 5 years, the salinity will be gone. That's not true. So, we investigated that, and the answer we got was, there's no way of telling.
And with this well online, if either of the other wells get contaminated, can this be a standalone well?
That's what this budget is for.
Okay.
This is for a standalone well.
With treatment. The well can't stand alone unless we treat it.
You would
Well,
treat-
that's
yeah,
what I meant, but
But what I'm trying to say, the
it won't
3.3
cross-contaminate.
Includes the treatment.
includes treatment. That's everything. So you have a standalone well.
And it won't cross-contaminate,
No.
come into the McIntosh well?
No.
Okay. Thanks.
So the salinity is not caused by road salt contamination?
No,
It's a different
it's
type?
caused by marine clays.
Because that is a big issue in a lot of wells.
Yeah.
It's road salt.
Yeah, it's in the swamp.
All right. Does it make sense for the budget committee to have the public comment to us, and then we adjourn our meeting temporarily, and then let you open a public hearing on this article?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, we're The Budget Committee is still holding its hearing. We're on Article 2, so you've heard a lot of discussion from the committee, and we welcome public input on this warrant article as proposed or questions. And just state your name and address for the record, so we have that.
Bob Madej, 47 Shannon Drive, but I do have property that is on the water system. So I want to thank you for bringing this warrant article forward. We all know that the drinking water in town needs some help. And we do know the history of the shortage of water in town, and everybody would like their tax bills to go down. And although this proposal is going to increase the water users' costs, one has to ask themselves, what is it doing for the town in general? So is the town going to prosper from this? Are we going to be able to attract more business into this town? Are we going to be able to attract more people into this town with the water system we currently have, or with a water system that we improve? And I'm not going to answer that question, and I think everybody could answer that question for themselves. Due to the fact that we're below state standards, I don't think there's a whole lot that we could do outside of this warrant article. So again, I thank you for bringing it forward to us. Also, in listening to the discussions, I jotted down some questions, and you did cover some of them. And I'd like to ask a couple of them, because I do believe they'll probably also come up at your deliberative session. So one of my questions was about property purchase. So I guess that's already built into the cost, as you have already been discussing it. The other one was the impact or the increase of the rate, the water and sewer rate for the water users. And you covered that. However, I heard it in two different terms, and I'm not quite sure what it really costs. I understand it to be somewhere between $75 to $100 a year for a water user. Now, I don't know if that's correct or not, and maybe you could help me correct that. And I'll tell you what, you don't have to correct that for me tonight, because I'll hear it again at the deliberative session. So I caution you may want to get a firm handle on what the costs are for the deliberative session. Other questions that I have that I haven't heard yet are operating costs on an annual basis. I understand it's going to be a filtration system. It's going to require some care and feeding. And then impact to the town employees. Everybody always likes to hear, right? Are we going to have a new town employee to take care of this plant? Do we have to hire a half-time person to take care of this plant? Or who's going to take care of this plant? And what might that impact be? So those are really my two questions that I haven't had answered yet, the operating costs and the impact to the town to maintain this plant. And once again, thanks for bringing this up. I think it's an action we do need to take.
Thank you.
Want me to take a shot at that?
Sure.
Sean, if I remember correctly, in our discussions, the rough operating cost of this is anticipated to be about $60,000 a year?
That's for a 12-hour day. It's $66,000 for a 12-hour day, estimated.
Okay.
So if we operated an 8-hour day, it's going to be a little bit less.
Okay, and the other question that Mr. Madej had is that there is no intention of hiring a new employee to manage this. We're going to do it with our current staff.
Currently, we are a grade 2 system. We are a grade 3 system with the water treatment facility. With this new facility, we would be required to be a grade 3 again. What that requires is that you have a grade 3 water operator that's on staff that is responsible for that, with a backup operator of a grade 2. I'm currently a grade 3 water treatment operator, so it would run under my license. So we would not need to hire someone for that.
Good questions. Thank you. Anyone else like to comment on Article 2 regarding the McIntosh well, or questions? Okay, then at this point, for the committee would so entertain a motion to adjourn for 15 or 5 minutes to give the council a chance to do their public hearing on this article, concurrent.
Look at that motion on that?
Yes.
Yes, so moved. I'll make that motion.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, so the motion would be to temporarily adjourn the Budget Committee meeting, hearing, and to reopen it once the council finishes their public hearing. All those in favor on the Budget Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Turn it over to you guys.
All right, at this point, we're going to open up our public hearing on this, now that we have a quorum. The risk of sounding redundant, does anybody have anything else to add to this? Everybody here has heard the information.
I do. Drew Kiefaber, 50 Elm Street. Speaking as a resident and a water user, I'm very glad that the town council has brought forward a proposal to add capacity. I feel this is something that is very important for us as a town. I'm also particularly pleased to see that the treatment is included in it. It is my personal opinion that we have experienced droughts within the last 10 years that have made our current wells unable to produce the water that we need. It's very reasonable to foresee that that will happen again realistically in the not too distant future, I would assume. Weather being what it is, such things can't be forecast very well. But I do believe having a third well that is an independent entity is very important. So I congratulate you on bringing this forward, and you can count on me to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kiefaber. Anybody else in the audience want to add anything? Mr. Porterata?
It's Porterata, 177 Nixon Road, Newmarket. First, when I heard this thing brought up about the well up there, they said something about, I guess you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it by pump it in and mix it in with the good water. But you're not going to do that.
Yes, we are. We're going to treat it first, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you didn't talk about it before, about treating it before, did you?
Yes, it's going to be treated before it gets mixed into the water in the tank. The other option is to put it in directly, and our opinion is that's going to give everybody unsatisfactory water. So we're going to treat it first, then it's going to get pumped into the tank.
Well, I've been hearing how bad this water is, and I'm kind of thinking about it. I said, usually you say, well, the water's passable, but you say it's not that good. What if it gets worse and worse, or something else happens?
First of all, the chances of it getting worse and worse are very slim. There's no reason why it would get worse. We've tested it, we pumped it, and did the standard test that the state requires. The idea is for this well to be able to stand alone, so that we pump water from this, we treat it, we put it in the tanks, or in the tank, so that if our other wells are down for any reason, we still have a source of water.
Because at one of the meetings I went to, and one time they said some of our utilities in the house could rust quicker because using this water.
If you put it in directly, you would have more of a chance of that happening. That's correct, because the water is not that high of quality. So that's why we want to treat it, so we prevent that from happening as best as we can.
He did say that if this passes and within about a year, they'd be all completed?
It would be 1.5 to 2 years before it would be completed.
Yeah, and then if he gets enough water, he'll flush the lines?
Yes.
Because I know I've been saying that for years now in front of our house because it's all rusted.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that Sean has given the council and the people of this town for not flushing the lines is we don't have enough water in the tank. We just can't waste the water to flush it. So this would give us the ability to flush the lines.
Well, if I'm around, I'll probably see it.
You'll be here. I guarantee it.
Hi, Nicole Benson, 12 Mockingbird Lane. How old are the supplemental wells that are currently working right now?
Can't hear you.
I feel like How old are the wells that are working right now? The two supplemental wells?
I defer to Leo Fillion on that one.
70s? They're older than Leo.
We put in the Bennett well in 1969. We put in the first, really just pipes in the ground to check it, and 1971 is when we actually put in the gravel portion of it. It was 1983, 84 when we put in the sewer well.
Thank you.
Any other members of the audience have anything they'd like to add? Any budget committee members? No? Any?
One question. Why is it listed as a 2/3 vote when it isn't? Aren't we an SB2 town, so it's 3/5?
I took this from what we've had in the past.
Good question.
We'll look at that.
bonding issue?
The bond issue over a certain dollar amount requires the two-thirds vote.
Brian, I'll check on that again.
We'll check on that.
Chet Jablonski, 30 Bay Road. Over the past... Chet Jablonski, 30 Bay Road. Over the past years, you talked about this well, and you talked about the arsenic levels of the well. Can Sean or whoever comment on how this is going to affect our water?
Sure. I defer to Sean and Jeff. His question was specific to the arsenic that's in this well and what the treatment is going to do.
It'll actually bring the arsenic quite a bit down, and if I actually pull the chart out, I can actually give you all the numbers. What it does is the main constituents we were looking at was it would bring the manganese down to 0.043. It would bring the arsenic down to 0.0047, which the arsenic maximum contaminant level is 0.01, so it's substantially below that level. It brings down the sodium down to 77, the chloride down to 48, which the secondary limit for chloride is 250, and it brings down the total dissolved solids down to 350, which the secondary contaminant level for that is 500. Okay.
You all set with that, Chet? Anybody else? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Turn it back over to the Budget Committee.
Great. I think we should proceed with receiving comments on all 6 articles and then deciding what we're doing tonight in terms of votes. Article 3 is the operating budget. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate as a gross operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the on the budget posted with the warrant, or as amended by the vote of the first session, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $9,649,110. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $9,593,011, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town of Newmarket or by law, or the town council may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 4013, Roman numeral 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Majority vote required. This was recommended by the town council by a vote of 6-0. I'm assuming there's going to be a presentation of some sort or summary.
Yes, we're going to, Mr. Winowski? Yes, please.
The budget that you have before you today was presented. I presented a budget to the town council back in January, which was $6,839,583, which was an increase of $249,691, or a 3.7% overall increase. And the general fund, the total budget was up by $232,240, or a 2.4% increase. The council asked me to work with the department heads to provide them with a level-funded budget to the current fiscal year that we're in. And the budget that they ended up adopting was $9,649,110, as Brian mentioned, and this represents a reduction of $13,901 below the current budget that we operate in at the current time. I can also tell you that this budget is $29,222 higher than the fiscal year 08 budget that was in place when I arrived here in Newmarket in 2007. This budget contains no pay increases for any full or part-time or permanent part-time employees except for members of the police and dispatch union. The health insurance cost to the community is only $8,026 for the current fiscal year, and it requires all eligible employees to contribute 20% towards this cost. And we are only providing one plan, which is the Matthew Thornton plan. Every department was affected by the cuts in order to reach the council's request. The police department's budget was reduced by $16,500. Roads and sidewalks was reduced by $162,000. Vehicle maintenance was reduced by $12,200. Fire and rescue saw a reduction of $10,000. And this is just a few of the larger cost items that were reduced on the general fund side. On the enterprise side of the budget, $30,456 was reduced, with the total reductions that was presented to the council of $246,141. Even with the cuts that was made at the present time to the budget that you have before you, the capital reserve fund was increased by $115,732 to begin to restore the cuts that was imposed 2 years ago as we developed the budget. The goal is to slowly begin to return the capital reserve funding to the level that it was 2 years ago. And I can tell you that the CIP committee worked many hours and unanimously supported the proposal that you have before you. So that, in a nutshell, is the overview of the budget. There's not a lot in this budget. It's really a bare bones budget. As I said, it's $29,000 less than it was in fiscal year '08. So with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Oh, I'm talking to you.
That's okay.
That chair.
Is there any other input that the council wants to give at this point? All right. I think, okay. I was thinking that we could go on to the public input, but if you guys have questions.
I had a question on the Town of Newmarket proposed budget. Under downtown TIF, it says we need $170,000. Is that to pay off the bond?
That money is to make bond payments and also to contribute towards the Sky Bridge that would be developed by Mr. Chinberg.
Okay. Is that allocation all in 1 year for the Sky Bridge, or are we breaking it up?
No, we have a $55,000 allocation that we committed to.
And that's all in this year?
Yes.
The bond payment was 118 the year before or so, and it goes down every year.
Right.
If the committee is ready, we can open it for public comment and input. Okay. If you'd like to have questions or comments about the town's proposed operating budget, here's your opportunity. If you'd like to come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and then ask your question or comment. Okay. We're going to go on to Article 3. 4, sorry. Did you change your mind, Nicole? Article 4, establish a sidewalk capital reserve fund. To see if the town will vote to establish a sidewalk capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35-1 for the purpose of implementing a sidewalk construction and reconstruction program, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be placed in this fund, and to appoint the town council as agents to expend from the fund. Recommended by the council by a vote of 6-0. It's a majority vote to pass. I don't know if this one needs an explanation, so I'm just going to go right to public comment. If you'd like to ask a question or a comment on Article 4, please come to the podium. Yes, Judy?
Are there plans to extend the current sidewalk situation within town?
Yeah, where is this going?
Any particular location or any expansion at all?
Expansion.
Are there any?
Locations now that probably need repair, but what are the expansions?
Okay, so Mr. Councilor Branch was commenting, so.
Right, there are plans to extend the amount of sidewalks that we have. There's talk about going up through Elm Street, Nichols Ave, along Main Street and Exeter Road from Bay Road to the Irving Station, Beach Street Extension, Chapel Street, New Village, which is already under construction. Those are the existing sidewalks. The new ones were Durrell. We're talking about Durrell up in that area. What's the correct term? Safe walk to school or something. Yeah, safe walk to school program. So there are. This is specifically designed for realistically new sidewalks. Pond Street to Grant Road, Elm Street, from Cedar to Packers Falls,
Yep.
which I believe is by the cemetery, so.
Yep.
In essence, that's what this article's about.
And that list was developed by the
Highway
Highway Safety Committee.
Yep.
Ms. Quox?
If you put all these sidewalks in, we're legally obligated to plow them.
Yes.
And we just heard that we took $162,000 out of roads and sidewalks to lower the budget, and we're going to put $50,000 in this way. I think that $50,000 should be not approved. I don't believe this warrant article is prudent at this time, and any extra money should be put towards the water treatment.
The majority of the roadways budget was cut due to the fact that one of the roads that was projected to be done was Ash Swamp Road, which we're not sure if we're going to do any drainage studies down there. So that was in essence where $150,000 came from.
Just the same, I still don't feel it justifies spending $50,000 right now, and we have so many other important things to do. I think water's a lot more than, and we've done without these sidewalks for 100 years or so I think we can wait a few more.
And that's why the people will decide.
That's right.
I do want to correct something, though. If this doesn't pass, it doesn't help the water treatment plant at all, because they're different sources
Well,
of money.
I
So
absolutely
don't,
realize
you
that.
can't take this money and put it towards the
And I'm
water
sure the
treatment plant.
public does, it's just, I just
But
feel that
you-
we should not be expending any money anywhere else except for what we really need.
Mr. Glennon?
Yeah, my only question is, somebody just said possibly putting sidewalks at Durrell Drive. Is that correct? Did I hear that correct?
I think that was in the list of ones that needed to be.
Yeah, one of those, okay,
corrected.
there's one currently there now.
Needed to be
Needs to be
fixed.
repaired.
It needs to be repaired. So it's not, is Durrell Wood a condominium homeowners association type thing?
We own the road.
What's that got to do with sidewalks?
We own the sidewalks.
The town owns the right
They're
of
not
way.
there, we don't own them.
We own the
But I'm
road that's here.
thinking, in a lot of places, they have homeowners association, they're responsible for, certain things on their own.
Right, yes, and we're certainly, this proposal would not allow the town to go build sidewalks on private property. That's not what this is intended for. This is for public ways.
So as far as we know right now, Durrell's Wood is not a homeowners association.
Well, there's a homeowners association, but they don't own the
Can I
roadway.
clarify where we're going?
Go ahead, yes.
The actual location was Bennett Way to Hersey Lane and Durrell Woods Drive. That was
Okay,
the
that's an
proposed.
appropriate answer. Thank you, Leo. He said that we own a 50-foot right-of-way, and I
That's what-
didn't know that, so
He said it too.
I didn't hear him, sorry.
That's okay. As someone who advocated on the council for Beach Street Extension to get a sidewalk, that's a demonstration of why we need to do these things, because it's actually safe to walk on Beach Street Extension now. And I think many will say the same thing if we build one on Packers Falls to Elm Street to the railroad tracks, because people have been hit on that road. There's a gully along the road. So I think this is a prudent step to help improve some key areas. I'm not sure if all the areas the council just outlined make sense, but I know of a couple areas that didn't have them in the past, and when we put them in, people started using it, and it's a lot safer. Now that we had some more discussion, anybody else from the public have a question or comment? Come on up.
Get Porter Otter again. Speaking of sidewalks, I mean, it's nice to have sidewalks. And I've always been told that when you do have a sidewalk in front of your property, you're assessed higher because you have this sidewalk. What I'm getting at is, I live on Exeter Road, and from the gas station Irving on, there's no sidewalks up to the Newfield town line. Now, is there any sense of putting,
Yes. There's a plan to move forward putting sidewalks there. The state has committed $850,000 to put a sidewalk /bike trail, a bike path.
Yeah,
It won't
but
be a sidewalk per se, it'll be a bike path.
because I see a lot of people walking on that road, and
This will make
that
it
is
safer.
dangerous because they come from Leader Lane and all that place to go
Right.
buy some stuff at the gas station, I guess.
It's not going to be a granite curbing type of thing, but it'll be wider, so it'll be safer for people to walk. The state has committed the money, they've yet to come up with the money, so if they do come up with the money, the town will go forward with that project.
I just brought that up anyway.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go on to Article 5, establish a downtown TIF capital reserve fund. To see if the town will vote to establish a downtown TIF capital reserve fund. TIF stands for Tax Increment Finance District, for those of you out there. Under the provisions of RSA 3515, Roman numeral 3, for the purpose of downtown TIF district expenses, and to appropriate the sum of $1,056,117 from the downtown TIF fund balance to be placed in this fund, and to appoint the town council as agents to expend from the fund. This is recommended by the council by a vote of 6-0. And there's a note here that says this will have no effect on the tax rate in fiscal year 2012.
And may I comment on it?
I welcome input or a summary of this.
This is just to allow us to pay off the bonds we have now for the roadway, and it'll allow us to discontinue the TIF district. And this is what mechanism we have to put in place according to DRA, I believe, in order to pay off the bonds legally and be able to disintegrate the TIF district.
So I missed all the budget meetings with the council due to family stuff. But if I understand correctly, I talked to Drew and he explained this. I think that you're taking money that's been captured by the TIF district, that's set it aside right now, you're putting it into a special fund, you're going to withdraw the $100 and whatever $1,000 bond payment every year to pay off the bond with the money we've already raised, eliminate the TIF district, and that tax base that's in the district will then go to the tax base for the whole community, which we did a couple years ago, and that's why the tax rate stabilized. What's the value right now left in the district? The assessed value? 10?
I think it's about a little over $5 million that we left to be able to take care of the bond.
This is the entire amount. They're going to pay it off.
$5 million in assessed value.
Yeah, and we flipped, I believe it was $30 million into the overall taxed valuation of the community.
Just the interest. No.
Okay. I understand that. Questions?
The question is, that's not quite the explanation that we had before, that this money would be set aside for the assessment of the interest that we have on the bond. You can't pay the bond off.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Well, it's to make the yearly payments on the
Yeah,
bond.
the yearly payments
Yes.
on the bond.
Yes.
Not to pay the bond off. So this could continue for X number of years, but it would cover those expenses.
Yes,
That
that's
is
correct.
correct.
That's right.
It's going to pay the annual cost of the bond payment.
Yes.
Right.
It's not a one-time payment to the bond. 'Cause you can't do that.
Is there something, obviously something did, I guess, something changed within the RSA for the TIF districts that we have to now set up this type of account? Is that
No.
what happened?
No, yeah, we want to eliminate the TIF district, so we can get the tax money back, get that money back on the tax rolls. We could leave the TIF district in place and just continue to pay the bond and collect the money and.
Okay, I understand all that, Mr. Chairman. We've been paying it prior to this bond issue, this warrant article, we've been paying it
Yes.
on a regular basis, no problem.
Yes.
So that's my question. Where we're putting it aside specifically in a specific account, is that a requirement by the state?
So Dana, I'm going to try to step in and help. We've received excess monies over the last 10 years
Yeah.
totaling $1,056,000.
Right.
That money cannot be used to pay the bond right now without this mechanism.
Okay, that's what the question was.
Yeah.
How did this all come about to have to do this? That's all I wanted was an explanation. I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, I just needed more clarification.
We're just trying to clarify that.
Nothing has changed, it's just the legal way that we
accurate?
need to do it.
Yeah, that's my point.
What has changed is that the legislature provided, through a capital reserve fund, the opportunity for communities to make long-term debt payments if they established it under 3515, Roman 3. And that's what we've done here, is be able to look out to 2023, when the last payment is going to be made, and took the portion of the captured revenue that we have, put it into this fund, and on a yearly basis, the council will remove that and pay that debt. We cannot pay it as a one lump sum because it was a municipal bond bank note, and they frown upon, well, they don't frown upon, they'll take your money, but they'll just invest it, so we have to pay it in yearly installments.
So, a further question? You said we're taking a portion of the funds, of the 1 point, whatever, that's there. How much is left?
I believe that it's going to be about $300,000 or $400,000 left that we have captured that we would turn back to the general fund.
So that will go back to the general fund?
Correct.
Good. Thank you.
Did I see another hand? Mr. Pickering?
We've seen a lot of bold headlines over the years about things that have happened in Newmarket, some for good things and some for bad things, but this one here is definitely a good thing, and I haven't seen any headlines, but this thing has been probably the most successful endeavor this community has gone into in years, and it's paying off huge dividends. It's incredible that we've captured this money to pay the entire debt off in such a short period of time. And I guess to reiterate to the folks that are listening at home, I mean, they are not going to be asked to raise any money. This money's already been raised. There's no additional cost. It's just going to be put into this account and paid off on a yearly basis. So it's been a phenomenal thing for Newmarket. Thank you.
Drew?
If I can add to Mr. Pickering's comment, not only is there no current tax impact, but what this allows the town to do, which has already been stated, is by dissolving the TIF district, the properties that are in the TIF district will become part of the town assessment, and therefore their taxes will be going into the general fund, which ideally will lower all of our taxes, at least incrementally.
Any comments? Any comments from the public or questions?
No.
From a straight math standpoint, he's right.
Okay. Article 6. I just asked and no one.
Is no one listening down there then?
We really can't hear down
They're all chattering. Article 6. Okay. Article 6, hydrologic modeling study, Ash Swamp Road. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to conduct a preliminary study to evaluate the potential impacts of raising the road elevation for a section of Ash Swamp Road that has been prone to flooding. Recommended by the council by a vote of 6-0. This would be a potential increase of 7 cents on the tax rate based on the current valuation.
Do you want me to speak to this?
Someone would be.
Okay, I'll speak to this. Several years ago, after we had the big flooding episode downtown and in the bowl, the town hired Underwood engineers to do a drainage study to find out if there were ways to help alleviate the flooding. They did a study that came up with an idea of building basically a detention pond behind the funeral home, but there were also a lot of unknowns. The one thing that we found out was that the majority of the flooding was caused by the rivers in town, one by Price's Garage, overflowing and allowing exorbitant amounts of water to get into the drainage system, and the creek behind the high school flooded over, and too much water got downtown. At this point in time, we don't know what we need to do to resolve that. The report that Underwood did would address a 50-year flood. What the storms we had, the Mother's Day storm, whatever, were well over a 100-year flood, which, for those of you that don't know, is basically a 100-year flood is a flood that you have a 1% chance of getting any year. We had 2 or 3 of them, in the last 5 years. But to make a long story short, a lot of the flooding problems downtown originate in the outlying parts of town, namely a portion of Ash Swamp Road. So in the Underwood study, they had, at the end of their study, there was about $40,000 left that the council wanted to use to do further studies. We couldn't do it because of we didn't have the money. Fiscal years lapsed, so we didn't have the money. This is $50,000 that I think will be well spent in at least getting some answers towards what, if anything, we can do to alleviate the flooding downtown. If we have rain events like we had 4 or 5 years ago, we're still going to have basically that same amount of flooding downtown. So this is money that I certainly support and the council supports. I think we owe it to the people that live downtown to try to do everything in our power to find out what the cause is and see if we can help prevent future flooding. So that's what this $50,000 is for.
Any questions from the Budget Committee? Mr. Fillion?
Yeah, I guess the problem I had, which I brought up several times before, is that the last time we flooded, I called the town administrator and other, Rick and whatever, and one of the large portions of why the downtown was flooding is the Piscasset River was overflowing its banks and was running across Hersey Lane and down and back at the high school, and there was a significant, I watched it, it flooded in there, it was at least 4 feet deep and 100 feet across, and the water was running right out of the Piscasset, right down and back at the high school, and a large portion of the water was going there, as well as part of it was crossing Elm Street just before the railroad tracks near New Village, and that was all going downtown too. And in spite of these 2 floods, nothing has seemed to have been done to take care of these 2 causes. I mean, to me, Ash Swamp Road, if you raise that road elevation, I know for a fact that it's going to be flooding out. There's a couple homes in Hamel Farm Drive that have flooded out in the last few floods, and you're going to flood them out even more when you do this, because you're going to raise the water level on the west side of Ash Swamp Road. And these houses that have flooded in the past few years are going to flood even more unless you put some method for the water to get across Ash Swamp Road. So one thing I don't like to see this just defined for Ash Swamp Road. If you're going to spend money up there, I would like to see it encompass Hersey Lane as well, where we've seen the water running across Hersey. I've seen it, and Rick has seen it, and a lot of other people have seen the water running across Hersey Lane and going into the downtown area, and I should think that that would be part of a study if we're going to do a study up there.
It starts at, Leo, I agree with you, but that water starts at Ash Swamp Road, yes? Crosses Ash Swamp Road first. And for the record, we can't just raise Ash Swamp Road. Everybody agrees that, you know, that's why you do a study, is so that you try to find solutions to let more water pass through without negatively impacting people upstream of it. And one of the biggest issues at Price's Garage is that the culvert that's there is not at the low point in the road. You have 2 feet of water over the road, and the culvert's only running 3/4 full because it's uphill from the low point. So those are the types of issues we want to address. And I know, Leo, we talked before about Hersey Lane, and, you know, today's day and age, you just can't raise Hersey Lane to prevent the water from getting downtown. That becomes a dam, and, you know, the state's permitting requirements, it's very, very tricky. So.
Hersey Lane is a 200-year-old road that's been running, and now that it's washed out, we can't repair it back to where it was before it was washed out. I find that hard to believe.
Well, that may be hard to believe, Leo, but welcome to 2011 environmental permitting.
Judy, I think I saw your hand.
No.
I just feel.
You don't have to.
Identifying that, I concur with Leo. I feel that identifying Ash Swamp, and I don't disagree with the money. By identifying only to be for Ash Swamp Road is not going to be the solution to, should be a broader study as to where the issues are. Now, we all know, or you know, I don't know, where some of the issues are, but I think it could be expanded to include some of the other key issues, key problems.
the heading on this is probably not as accurate as it should be. It's the Ash Swamp Road, it's, the drainage area is in Ash Swamp Road. It's not Ash Swamp Road itself. It is the drainage area, so that, whatever is determined here will have impacts on Hersey Lane also, because that is downstream from here, so.
I'm going to open it up for the public to have any questions or comments. If you do, please come on up to the podium. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. I was skeptical of the study that was paid for a couple years ago, and I don't think we can afford to do any of the implementation of the ideas that are going to come up. Because if you do anything to withhold back those waters, you're going to be paying impacts to the landowners who lost their farmland, whose backyards got wet. I don't think we're going to be able to afford to do these ideas. So I don't want to even spend the money. Now, having said that, I haven't been involved and had a chance to read some of the stuff that you guys had, so I'm probably not going to vote on this, but I'm skeptical that we'll be able to afford the ideas that come out of it, because they're all human engineering of natural systems. That gets really expensive, really quickly. So, that's my comment. Any other questions to confirm what this is doing? All right. Article 8, Article 7, appointment of town council as agents to expend, to see if the town will vote to appoint the town council as agents to expend from the Technology Capital Reserve Fund previously established in May 2006.
Want me to give you a brief
Please.
synopsis? This was actually brought to the council's attention by Mr. Fillion at a council meeting, that the warrant article that was passed years ago for the Technology Capital Reserve Fund did not appoint anybody as agents to expend the fund. So this is to allow the council to expend the funds that are in this capital reserve fund, because as it is now, the council can't expend any of that money.
How much money is in it? Anybody know, approximately?
I wanted to say $60,000.
60,000-ish, 60 to 70,000. Any questions or comments from the public on Article 7? And Public Budget Committee?
Comment I guess to make is the only way this can be spent now is an article in town warrant at town meeting. That's how capital reserve funds are spent if there's no agents that have been appointed as expended agents.
Okay. Everybody get that? Right now, if this doesn't pass, any expenditure from it has to be approved at the town meeting, which obviously can limit the ability to make expenditures if you only can do it once a year. All right, we'll go on to Article 8, rescind bonding authority for Black Bear TIF. Shall the town, and this, is this a petition?
This is petition warrant article.
Yeah, the next two are petition warrant articles, just so everybody knows. Shall the town vote to rescind the $3,250,000 of bonding authority for the Black Bear Tax Increment Finance District that has been authorized by a 1998 vote of town meeting per New Hampshire RSA 162K 1 through 15 local option tax increment finance district as adopted by the Newmarket Town Council in accordance with Municipal Finance Act RSA Chapter 33. The purpose of this article is to prohibit the use of any RSA 162K municipal debt to finance the construction of public infrastructure improvements, for example, roads, sewer, other utilities, etc., within the Black Bear TIF. The exercise of this binding authority by the Town Council was expressly conditioned upon the town having secured a firm agreement with the developer sufficient to amortize, pay back the bonded debt. To date, no bonds have been issued by the Town Council, and no infrastructure improvements have been constructed by the town in the Black Bear TIF since it was established 13 years ago on May 6, 1998. A number of concerning development proposals for the TIF have been discussed. A New Jersey garbage company, a lumber distribution facility with 24/7 heavy truck and rail traffic, and more recently, a trash recycling plant delivering garbage to Newmarket. Given the large number of residents in this area of Route 108 and New Road, and considering the nearby proximity to the environmentally sensitive Great Bay, the petitioners believe that taxpayer money should not be used to promote large commercial industrial development in this area of town. Submitted by petition, and it needs a majority vote. There will be no effect on the tax rate. I believe that, does someone have the budget rules book? Because I don't think we can vote on petition warrant articles.
Yes, we do.
I'm fairly confident that we're not allowed to make recommendations on petition warrant articles.
This doesn't really have any funding on.
Yeah. Yeah, but, and this one doesn't even have funding either, so. But we'd welcome public input on it, although we didn't write it and the council didn't write it. Anybody have any questions or comments? Mr. Pickering and then Mr. Glennon? Okay, and then, you want to go first?
Ed?
Go ahead, Ed.
No, you go, Ed.
No, it's okay. We'll hear from everybody.
But we're not going to do it in garbage. That woke me up. I mean, I don't know where this is going, because we don't know for sure. And since Michael Branch, he's, your Black Bear representative?
Yes.
And, has anybody committed to this property yet?
No.
So, well, I won't say one thing, though. I live on 108, and in back of my house is the industrial park. It started way back and all that. And the entrance to that industrial park, if you put two trucks together, they won't go. I mean, there's a lot of things to do before you think about doing something with heavy traffic there and everything else. There's not even a blinker there, and cars coming out of there, all you hear is screeching, because the truck, anybody want to make a left turn there, they have a hard time. I'm just saying that there's been accidents there too. You can look in your records. Go to the police department, there's been all kind of bumping there and fences gone and everything else, because it's a dangerous entrance. I mean, before anything does happen, you have to do a lot of preliminary looking into, see what you're going to do something like that. But my point of view is, I lived in this town for many years, and I thought someday that the town would put in condos for 55 and older. Never mind this and that, because my wife and I, well, we're all right, we're middle 80s, it's hard for us to keep our property and everything else. And condos for 55 and older is all around the area, you know what I mean? I thought that'd be a good place to put that there, if you ever thought about it. I think I brought it up once. That way you'd have only cars going there. And that way there we would, because we don't want to go into what they call one room, one kitchen thing, that we want a nice area condo, you know what I'm talking about, and live comfortable. But something like that would be beneficial to the town, because if you did put condos in there for 55 and older, you wouldn't impact the school. And, you know, like I say, and there'd be less trouble with older people. They very seldom get into trouble anyway, I think. I thought I'd bring that up if you're going to try to get somebody in there. Doesn't Sherburg doesn't he build condos? Sherburg just got it building these apartments. Oh, Sinberg, whatever.
Maybe you'll be his financial partner.
Oh, no, but I say he builds single homes all over, but they won't let him put apartments all over, but here. Just a comment, that's all, because it seems like, when it comes down to it, this water situation has a lot to do with extra apartments, because these people in apartments use more water than we would in a single home. That's been found in the records too. Anyway, I was thinking about this thing here, that they should do that. But anyway, that's why I just make a small comment on that, because I live there, and that's all we see is trucks going in there and out of there. They take turns, and when the truck comes out there, he goes right on the people's property to make that turn. So I just want to put that little impact in there.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob Monday again from Shannon Drive. So it would have been nice for the petitioner to be present here to present this article to her.
I am here too.
So, because I don't quite understand what is being asked here, and I guess I'd like to be corrected. To me, it sounds like the article is asking to rescind this bonding and not allow the town to build infrastructure within the TIF district should we acquire tenants for the TIF district. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So it means that the town is not supporting development within the town. So years ago, when we decided to support infrastructure development within the town, we created a TIF district. We set up this bond, or this potential to seek bond funds for future infrastructure development to support development in the TIF district. And now this petition warrant article is asking to rescind that. If that were to be the case, how would the town then support industrial development within the TIF district? So I asked that of the petitioners, if they could maybe give us a little bit of a talk on what the warrant article is intended to do.
I'll make a comment on that.
And if you do, would you please talk into the microphone, because we're having a hard time hearing you.
In other words, you approve of starting the garbage plant back there, right?
That's not what this says.
It almost does say that that's what they had offers for.
Okay, Ed, if you're prepared to explain, is
He's
he,
asking for a comment, I'm giving him one.
he was asking to confirm his understand.
Anywhere near that new road
Ed.
anywhere else?
Ed, I think he's confirming, he
That's
just,
for
If
him.
I may?
Where does he?
I think he just
May
wants
I?
to confirm that this is.
So
reci-
I am not.
Hey, Bob, hold on a second.
Okay.
I just believe the question that was asked, and I think I can answer
Did
it,
you get out of there? Okay, I did.
is simply, is this going to rescind the Black Bear TIF and eliminate the use of the Black Bear TIF to fund the development of industrial? And the answer is yes.
That's a fair enough question. Yes.
This eliminates the Black Bear TIF if it passes.
No, it does not.
No,
Okay, it eliminates the bonding authority, which essentially eliminates
no.
the ability to do
No,
things.
money will still be going into the TIF
Okay.
as properties also get improved, even if
Okay.
they increase the rate. Money will still be going into the TIF.
Okay.
It will not eliminate the TIF. All it will be doing is eliminating their bonding authority.
So to clarify, did you understand that, Bob? I don't need to repeat that? Nope, okay. I'm going to repeat it. This does not eliminate the TIF district. I was mistaken. It eliminates the bonding authority that the voters provided for the TIF district. So the TIF district still exists, whether this passes or not, and the money that is collected by the TIF district for the Black Bear, which is relatively small comparatively to the downtown, would still be set aside in a fund and available to support appropriate infrastructure improvements as approved by the council.
Actually, they're putting in, what, $162,000 a year into this, because all what has been built in the past, since the TIF, any
Yeah.
new buildings and whatnot, that added revenue goes all into the TIF, and it still will continue going into the TIF.
Right, that's what I just explained after
Yeah.
you corrected me.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Okay, so, does that help, Bob? At least answer more clearly than I did the first time?
It's my understanding that the TIF district is to entice businesses into your town. And to help entice businesses into your town, you support them in some way. And these bonds, the availability to float these bonds to make the infrastructure improvements to support industry that might move into town is a good thing from the perspective of a business trying to move into town. Otherwise, the business has to come up with funding for this type of stuff, or the town has to come fund it by some other means. So it seems to me that when the TIF district was established, this was all recognized, and in order to support this development, it was established that we could go out and bond these items and help entice development into town. By approving this, it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, we would be removing that option to assist development moving into town.
Yes. For this particular area of town, yes. Through this mechanism of a bond.
All right, through this particular area in town, which was established as an industrial area in the first place,
No.
as a TIF.
Private property there.
It was established as a TIF district, as an industrial area.
You're correct on that, Bob. However, there was private property with the exception of the Wilson property, which is what the town owns. There isn't enough land there to do whatever any of these options that they're chosen to do. So they would have to look at further land. My understanding was, I'm not sure if I'm correct totally on that, but
I believe it's accurate to say that the Blackberry TIF district was established with commercial and industrial development as the goal.
yes.
And are you telling me that there's no further land left within that district to support development?
No.
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 There's private property beyond the Wilson. So, yes, there is.
Okay. Did the petitioners want to provide any additional comment? I'll give you the chance.
My name is, I'm going to get up here.
Yep, please.
My name, you're going to be able to hear me, okay?
Okay.
My name is Sean O'Shaughnessy. I live at 179 New Road, all right? This TIF was brought to my attention earlier this year by a couple of individuals, and I heard what some of the things that were proposed for this TIF, and I don't like what I've been hearing. I don't know if it's true, I don't know if it's not true, I don't know anything about it. But what I do know is if we defund this TIF, they will not be able to even discuss these kind of issues with some of the rumors that I've heard about various companies like garbage truck companies and lumber companies or whatever they are. The last one I heard is a waste recycling plant, which would bring trash from all over this area, New England, into our town. That would bring trucks, many of them, hundreds of trucks a day, trains into this town. Roads won't support it. Would have a 24-hour, based on rumors, a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation with trucks backing up, beeping all over the place. New Road, between New Road and 108, is a very quiet, serene area. All right? We want to keep it that way. We don't want any noise pollution, light pollution, vibration pollution. So this is why I help support this thing, to bring it to the point that we defund this thing so we don't have to worry about such things anymore. Right? So that's the way I feel about it. And I'm very passionate about this. If somebody tries to put something in there, it's going to ruin our neighborhood. And it's going to not do any good for the town to have a waste recycling plant in the midst of our lovely town. Any other questions?
And the environment.
What's that?
And the environment.
The environment. Yeah, we're right near Great Bay. We don't need any heavy industry of any kind in that area. Light industry, nice housing, 55 plus, fine. It's all great, but no industrial nightmare in our midst. So that's all what I have to say. Any other questions? I'm not a bashful guy. Ask me. I'll tell you what I think.
Just for everybody's, Leo reminded me, the budget committee is not voting on this because it's non-monetary. So we have no vote on it. So I want to keep that in mind because we have other ones we do have to vote on tonight. Appreciate your explanation, sir.
All right, thanks.
Can I just,
Chairman.
No, hold on. The council wants to provide an opportunity to have a comment, and then I know there are several hands that start at that end of the table and going to come over to Lorian. I'm not sure if it's a question. I think.
No, I just want to clarify something.
Sure.
If this passes, this would eliminate the ability for the town to bond and spend money for infrastructure. It does not change the zoning there, and it does not prevent anybody from developing any of those properties there.
Fine.
Just so you're clear of that.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
very
because
clear about
the
it.
way you said it, you thought, the way I understood it was that
I
you thought
hope,
it was going to...
excuse me, but I hope this leads to the disintegration of this tip. That's what I'm hoping it does.
Sure.
Right? Because we don't want that thing there, or anything like that there.
But that's still not going to prevent
Well,
development there.
that's another fight for another day.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay?
Absolutely.
All right.
All right, good clarification. Mr. Pickering, I believe, has been waiting patiently.
Well, one of the companies that was very interested in moving in there was Celestica in the earlier days when this TIF was created and approved by an overwhelming majority of the Newmarket taxpayers to create both TIF districts, the downtown one, which we know how successful that has been. Granted, garbage doesn't sound good to me either, but there must be good companies out there beyond garbage companies that could move in there. We have no place in Newmarket to do anything. This land was set aside for the expansion of our tax base by bringing in businesses. There's no other place in town that you could do it. You have all this raw land out there, and I think we can get I'm not a green person, but I'm sure we can do better than garbage recycling facilities out there. And I just cannot believe that we're going to try to rescind something that, I believe it was something in the 90% range of the taxpayers at the time supported this to set up this TIF district, and we know how successful the downtown one was, and I'm sure that that area there could be just as successful with much better businesses than garbage facilities.
Probably could.
Mr. Fitzgibbon, and then if the committee has questions or comments, just make your hands known again, because I can't keep track. Okay, Jack, then
I
Leah.
don't remember specifically, but when the RSA was instituted back for the towns in New Hampshire, and with what Larry just said, I remember Selectica. And I would think that whether there was an existing situation like a TIF district or not, I don't think there's going to be too many people who are going to welcome a garbage dump or anything like that. That doesn't say it's going to be there. With what limited knowledge I have about how the TIF operates, it's benefited many communities across the state, and it's specifically simply to make the financing for the company that's coming in, once it's approved by the constituency, to get in there, and then they have it easy for a few years, creates employment, creates tax base, and it doesn't always create garbage dumps. So we did come close to getting one of the best and largest technological companies, and that was, what was it?
Pease ended up
And
with
they
it.
bailed it out.
Well, that's
A
okay.
lot of
Still pay taxes.
This isn't the exact location. They made that move about at the 11:30
Yeah.
hour
Oh,
when they were coming to
absolutely.
Newmarket, because we were both
Absolutely.
on the council at the time. So it doesn't create a ghost there waiting to ruin New Road or any place else. I can understand where you're coming from. But that's all it would do. Doesn't make the possibility of what your fears are any more or any less. In fact, I would say if the TIF remains there, it's a lot less that's going to happen.
All right, Leo, I believe is next.
Yeah, I guess I dug out this New Hampshire Local Government Center and on whether we should have recommendations on this. I says two sentences. The law does not authorize inclusion of recommendations on non-money articles. Rescinding a $3.250 bonding authority sounds to me like a moneyed warrant article.
It's not
Whether
money
it's-
we're spending.
And it's not a spending, but it's a money article.
So let's,
Second
Leo, let's do the simple thing. We can make a vote, and then they can decide if they're allowed to publish it or not.
I didn't hear you.
Well, we can vote on it if you'd like, and then we can, the town administrator will find out legally if he's allowed to publish that vote or not. So we're on both sides of the fence there.
I'd like to read the other recommendation they have here is that, in addition, all special warrant articles, including petition warrant articles, those regarding bonds, notes, capital reserve funds, trust funds, or any other appropriation articles labeled in the warrant as special by the governing body, requiring notation on the warrant whether or not they are recommended by the governing body and the official budget committee, if any. There you go.
Was that an RSA or that you quoted from, Leo?
It's a bulletin from the Municipal Association.
Does it fall into anything under Chapter 32, the RSAs for budgeting?
RSA, if any, RSA 32.3, Section 6, RSA 32.5, Section 5.
Okay. Mr. Kefauver.
My question, I believe, is directed to Mr. Parnell, and that is how much money is currently in the Black Bear TIF District fund, I suppose, appropriate? Thank you.
Follow up on that. What's the annual revenue captured?
Last year, I think it was 100.
Lorianne had a, sorry, I skipped you. Lorianne, then Roseanne.
This only changes the fact that there will no longer be bonding authority, correct?
Yes.
All right, so that doesn't change the fact that the council still is the ones who Spend those funds, correct?
Expend the captured revenue, yes.
Okay.
Is that correct? The council still would be able to expend the captured revenues that are in hand or that will be received. Roseanne?
Roseanne Quox, Wally Falls, Newmarket. Regarding Celestica, yes, they were going to come into town, and we would have expended that bond for them. They are still paying taxes up at Pease, but we could have been in a situation where you could have gotten someone in there that would not have been able to continue to pay the taxes. We would have initiated this bond, and then I believe the taxpayers might have been liable to pay it. I have several issues with the Black Bear TIF as to how it's being handled. Right now, I think there's $340,000. I left all my Black Bear TIF papers at home. $340,000 in captured revenue right now for Black Bear TIF. Over the years, we have collected over $1 million in captured revenue from there. And that $1 million, you would have to imagine, would be in the general fund today if it wasn't put aside and allocated for the Black Bear TIF. I don't know what that would do to the tax money per $1 million, maybe 70 cents on the dollar, I'm not sure. And the problem with the Black Bear TIF has always been access. And I don't believe you're ever going to get any access there. We have an agreement with Shearwater, i.e. Conway, to put a railroad crossing. I believe the town is now in litigation with them because they refuse to put it in. They know as business people that it's not advantageous for them to put it in. The makeup of the committee right now has been questionable, to say the least. As a matter of fact, they expended $424,000 to purchase the Wilson Farm through general fund money. It was voted on by the town council. There's a resolution signed, and Mr. Dixon was the town administrator at the time. He was supposed to use the bonding authority to buy the Wilson property for $606,000. But he didn't do that. I guess in reading the warrant article, it stated that it can only be used to pay down the debt once you have a developer signed, sealed, and delivered. But they went ahead and they used $424,000 of general fund money that the Black Bear TIF still hasn't paid back to the general fund. So if you take the 424, and I don't know if that was deducted out of the captured assets for the Black Bear TIF, that's $1.5 million that the town would have had. Access down there is not going to happen. It just isn't. And by rescinding this, I believe that if we do get a business that wants to go down there, if the TIF itself isn't just done away with, if we have a business that's willing to put a crossing in and they feel confident enough that the business they want to put in there, they can afford to do all the infrastructure themselves, I think they should do it. But as far as the way things have been handled with the Black Bear TIF, from going back from taking money from general fund to buy property in a TIF area, to the way we've got illegal meetings and everything else. The downtown was very successful, but you had access there. There was no problems. Black Bear TIF, I believe, is something that should definitely, I think it would be beneficial to the town to rescind the bonding and to maybe eliminate the TIF area completely. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Mr. Madey?
So just a few things. First of all, Mr. Parada, I want to apologize. I hope you didn't understand that I was taking a microphone from you. I think you know better that I would not disallow you to speak. I just wanted to speak into the microphone. You had asked me a question. So a couple of other clarifications I want here. And for the originator of the Warren article, I understand his concerns about the type of industry that is to move in there. For my own clarification, any industry that wishes to move into the TIF is approved by who within the town? Planning board, right? Planning board? There's openings on the planning board, right?
Yes.
Right. So the planning board has control over who moves into the TIF And the planning board represents the town's people, and I would hope that their vote would reflect what everybody would desire, and in some cases not desire such undesirable industries to move in. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you for clarifying that the planning board does have that authority. And then my other question is, the bonds, these bonds that are allowed to be, that are currently allowed to be authorized for the TIF, are they not required to be approved by a public vote, by another warrant article before moving forward? Or is the authority right within the town council because of the development of the TIF? So
The warrant article that was passed in 1998 authorized the council to issue a bond under certain conditions.
okay, so the bond, any bonding for any particular industry that came in would be the authority of the town council to issue those bonds. All right, thank you. And then, just for clarification, I believe that as a petition warrant article, you cannot remove it from the warrant. It is to be left on the warrant and go forward as it is. Of course, those at the deliberative session have the authority to rearrange it if they do so choose to by, at the deliberative session, but just to not waste your time on it, yeah.
Just the amount of money. I can't change the wording of it.
That's incorrect. They can change the wording, but not the intent. But that's left up for that. That's left up for that.
Argue that one. I'm not sure that's it. Yes.
Is the moderator for the deliberative session, is he here this evening?
Yes, he is.
Who is it?
Phil Nazaro.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
You might want to practice a little bit. Okay. Any other?
Want to rescind that?
I don't see anything else. All right, we're going to go on to Article 9, flood mitigation via McAllen Dam removal feasibility study. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $85,000 through this special article for the purpose of evaluating the removal of the McAllen Dam as a precedent to any proposed capital investment toward its repair, in order, but not limited, to mitigate flooding in Newmarket from the Lamprey River, and further to authorize the town council to apply for, obtain, and accept federal, state, or other grants that may be available to subsidize costs associated with this feasibility study. This was submitted by petition. And this would increase the tax rate by 11 cents approximately. Is there anyone here that can speak to this first? Are you going to speak, are you the petitioner or one of the?
Nope, have a comment and a question.
Is there anyone here that's a petitioner that wants to help explain?
Well, I helped gather petitions.
Then, okay, then if you signed it, then you're a petitioner.
I did sign it, sorry.
That's okay. If you could state your name for the record.
John Wilson, 2.5 North Main Street. I did sign the petition. I know we have a problem with our dam, and we've been ordered to do something about it. And it seems to me that the options are either to fix it, to change it somehow, or to remove it. And so far, the only conversation I've heard about has been a repair, and I think we spend around $100,000. Is that what we talked about today? What was it? No. I'm sorry. Just for the engineering study. It was around $100,000 or something like that, in that neighborhood, too. But as far as I know, no real consideration has been given to changing the configuration, whether we lower it or add gates or something to allow us to let more water through, more volume of water through, because we need to let a whole lot of water through very quickly for a short period of time. So when this petition came to me, in absence of any of these other choices, whether any of this other attention toward reconfiguring or removing, I signed it because I'm just afraid that we'll choose the path of least resistance and just repair, which brings us back to a beautiful dam, but status quo. One doesn't fix any of our flooding problems at all. It just leaves us in the same boat, if you will. So I know this has come later than anything else, and I see nobody has voted on it or considered it. So I would ask that you do consider these other options as prudent ones. especially since it seems that there's a lot of funding available to cover the cost of the study itself, so that it would not have impact on the rest of us taxpayers. The second thing I had was a question, and sorry, it's rooted in ignorance, so you just have to have patience with me here about if that $505,000 figure, that sounds like it was the estimate to repair the dam, it's not in the budget that I saw, so there hasn't been a decision to do that yet, as far as I know. Otherwise, we would have seen it in the budget, right? Is that correct? How does that work? I mean, it's not in the budget right now, so how does that decision work?
The council would bring it forward and put forward a warrant article next year, or put it in the budget next year. I don't think you could hold a special meeting.
So it couldn't happen this year, right?
No.
Even though DES pressures us to resolve. And I know that there's a study going on now about maybe using it for hydropower, and we've been given a kind of stay of execution here by the DES to wait till that study's done before we have to get underway with our repairs, so to speak. And rather than do things in a serial nature, I wonder why we couldn't maybe do things in a parallel, because I'm imagining if I were the DES, once the study for hydro was finished, if, just for the sake of argument, the conclusion was, no, that's not going to work for us, thank you very much. I, as the DES, would want to see movement. I wouldn't want to hear, now we're going to investigate reconfiguration, or, we're thinking of just doing a study on dam removal. I mean, I wouldn't want to have to go back and say that again. Couldn't some of these things happen in parallel, especially, like I've said, and redundant here, if some of those costs are offset by agencies offering the money? That's all I have to say. Any questions?
Thank you. Did you have a question for him?
Yeah. So your intent, or the petition's intent, is to raise and appropriate $85,000 to remove the dam, and that's what you want that $85,000 to be? Well, I guess my real question is, you only want that $85,000 to be spent on the intention of the petition, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, because I think that you're going to run into problems with the way this is written, and I'm just going to...
Sure. Let me just say, I'm a signer of the petition, but I'm not the generator of the petition. So
Okay, well,
he's
I
here,
guess-
and probably be better asked of him.
Well, that person isn't here, is that correct?
Yeah, he's here.
Oh.
He's going to follow me, I think.
Okay.
Okay. But any other questions for me? Otherwise, thank you for your attention.
Do them after the meeting,
I just...
because they can revise it.
They still have time?
They can revise it at the deliberative session.
Okay.
Sir, good evening. Jim Phelps, 8 North Main Street, or 4.5 North Main Street. I'm not actually the creator of the petition wording. That was from outside agents as well that assisted, but hopefully I could answer your question. I do have quite a bit of information or dialogue for you as well, but to answer your question first, I'd be happy to
Well, it
attempt to do
isn't,
so.
I'm just going to make the suggestion that at the deliberative session, with this feasibility study, it needs to say, this is a special warrant article. The fact that it says 85,000 through the special article doesn't create the same intent as this is a special warrant article. A special warrant article means that money cannot be spent on anything else.
Right. I don't have a copy. I didn't try to ease my load here, but I'm quite certain that the petition that was signed by residents did in fact say petitioned special warrant article. And I'm, again, perhaps someone else has a copy with them?
I have it right here, and it was taken verbatim as was submitted.
Okay.
I just went through the school budget, and their special articles all have this written on the bottom because it's required by DRA.
Right.
In order to be a valid special article.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that would be, it would be appropriate to have that amended during the deliberative session.
if you could speak to how the estimate of $85,000 was placed in here, that would be helpful, I think.
Ted Dyers of the DES indicated that it would be in the range of 100,000. A UNH professor indicated that it would be 70,000. Simply took the difference of the two. And as Mr. Wilson stated, this 85, and very, very important, the $85,000 does not include any contributions from any agencies. And on that note, it should be noted that Exeter is undergoing a dam removal study as we speak, and they had the benefit of receiving $60,000 before the warrant article even made it to the voters. Their total assessment is $100,000, of which $60,000 is coming from outside agencies, and I'm not sure if any other money has been awarded to them, but I'm quite sure that that possibility exists. Because the town of Milford is also doing a dam removal study. And the selectmen of that town decided upon themselves to move forward with the study at the town's cost, but during that process, they sought out grants and contributions from agencies, and that study is being 100% funded by outside agencies. Therefore, the $85,000 by all indications will not be $85,000.
Do you have the sources from those other towns, from Exeter and Milford, as to what resources they got their funding from?
The people of Milford are pleased to offer those that have contributed and provide that list.
Yeah. I just think the town council should maybe examine and get in touch with those two communities to find out if it would help.
Absolutely, absolutely
the market
agreed.
as well.
I do have a number of letters from agencies that do indicate and support that they would provide both technical and financial assistance for either the study or the dam removal itself.
Okay, so you have any other any other comments you want to make?
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick, but I do have quite a bit to go through here. I thought if anyone's interested to understand why I came to assist residents in this process and getting the special warrant article, as it should be named, to the town and to the voters for their consideration. And I am a resident. I have 2 properties on the Lamprey River, and it should be noted that in 2006, we just received 12 inches of water in the basement. And that's it. The house is on a knoll, very fortunate. So it's not from a personal perspective or personal need to mitigate flooding for a personal need. I have been here for 10 years, and as Councilman Boderman indicated relevant to Article 6, in the last 5 years, there have been 3 floods there are 3 floods that are in the top 5 in recorded history for Newmarket. In 06 and 07, we had number 1 and number 2 in recorded history. Last year, we had 3 floods. 1 was in the top 5, but all 3 would be categorized in the top 8 in recorded history, and that's in just 1 year. So, as I see these things occurring, and also it should be noted that New Hampshire House actually got involved with this whole topic of continuing flooding. And they alerted through House Bill 648 in September of 2008. And if you don't mind, and I quote, "Flood events as large and as larger than 2006 and 2007 will occur in the future. Communities and the state should plan accordingly." So you're looking at, I'm seeing this from personal experience, seeing the river and what it, and the causes and the damages both financially to the town and to the residents, coupled with a FEMA report in July of 2008. The independent FEMA study indicated Difference in 100-year floodplain elevation attributable to the dam, that is the McAllen Dam, is over 20 feet. Floodplain caused by the dam is extensive. So, as a resident, you see these facets, this reality, and this trend of increased flooding, and you don't have to go far to find meteorologists, hydrologists, or stormwater experts, even here locally at UNH, to see that the trend is only increasing, and the pivotal role that the McAllen Dam plays upon flooding and the lower Lamprey River and the associated costs to the town. When I learned that the town was planning on putting forth the bond of $500,000 to repair the dam, my natural thought, as any town resident may think, or most perhaps, why are we investing $500,000 in something that we know is going to cause us money in the future and for generations to come? Now, as a business owner, I or anyone else would not invest $500,000 into a piece of equipment if we knew that piece of the equipment was costing us money both now and in the future. We would study, we would review, we would consider alternatives, and one natural alternative in my mind is not to make the repair to ensure its existence and associated costs, but potentially its removal. Hence, I worked and assisted on getting the special warrant article in place. And there are residents that are very curious as to why we, the town, haven't explored removing the dam or exploring alternatives when we're faced with the ongoing costs of the dam, which aren't just, of course, flooding. It's the repair, the initial repair, the ongoing repair, maintenance, fees, monitoring. And I'm curious if anyone has any feedback on that, and if not, I'd be happy to continue and hopefully not take too much of your time.
Yeah, if you can, it's 9:30, we still have to go through all these again and make votes on them, so.
Okay.
You get succinctly, like, another couple minutes.
Okay,
and then
great.
Maybe some questions we'll get to.
I'll talk very quickly. I do have some items to hand out. There was an article where a Newmarket Council member indicated that, and I believe I'll get the quote correct, since we are not required to remove the dam, there is no reason to undergo the repairs. I'd just like to make a clarification. The DES, who classified the dam as high hazard, isn't necessarily mandating repairs. They're either mandating repairs, removal, or breach of dam, or the reconfiguration of the dam. And I would like to ask anyone to consider, if we went forward with $500,000 worth of repairs, would we really go backwards and consider a removal study or removal altogether after making an investment of $500,000? So I would contend that perhaps we're not required to make, we're required to perform due diligence in my mind. And I will try to make it, if I do have a letter from the Coastal Conservation Association of New Hampshire, which I will not read, into record. I would like to highlight some of the high points, but there are quite a few other letters that I do have from agencies. But I will keep it very brief. I do not have additional copies, but this letter is a copy, and it was sent to the Newmarket Town Council, and it's dated March 14th, from Donald Swanson, President of Coastal Conservation Association of New Hampshire. It clearly supports dam study removal, or dam removal study, as well as potentially dam removal itself. Second letter from Mitchell Coulter, President of Great Bay Trout Unlimited, also dated March 14th. This is a copy addressed to the Newmarket Town Council, which again is highly endorses the idea of not only a removal study, but also potential removal of the dam. Regarding funding, there was talk of, and getting back to the $85,000 and/or cost of a potential removal of the dam. I'd like to, for everyone's benefit, quote Ted Dyers of the New Hampshire DES, as quoted in 2 newspaper articles. The first of July 22nd in Foster's Democrat, and I quote, "The coastal program manager, Ted Dyers, said the removal could be beneficial in returning the Lamprey River to its original flow and also could have long-term cost savings if the town no longer had to pay for repeated upkeep of the dam." Dyers said the state would likely allow the town time to study a possible removal project, and also said grant funding would likely be available for the study and actual removal project. On July 30th, 2010, Seacoast Online and their associated papers published from Mr. Dyers, "If we removed it, we could apply for a lot of funding and grant programs," Dyers said. "This funding would end up costing the town little to no money." However, Dyers also said there would be fewer funding programs available for repairing the dam. I have a fax, and I can distribute copies tomorrow to everyone. I did not bring enough copies this evening. I have a email from Deb Lucelle of the New Hampshire DES, River Restoration, and she is the coordinator. There are many steps and permits required for dam removal projects, and missteps along the way can create lengthy time delays. In addition, there are many lessons learned with each project and from other experiences throughout New England that assist in making the process more efficient for current and future projects. Typically, project teams, that's the DES she's referring to, are set up to assist owners, and this has proven to be very effective and efficient. Because each dam removal project is unique, we encourage the dam owners to make contact early in the process so that I can engage the appropriate individuals, agencies, and organizations and have an affiliated interest with the project and trust resources in the area. Dam removal is an option for dam owners to explore as an alternative to dam repair, and under the auspices of this program, there must be a willing dam owner. If the town of Newmarket is interested in exploring the option of dam removal as an alternative, I would be happy to discuss this with them further. In addition, I am confident that there would be a great interest on behalf of many state and federal agencies and private organizations as it pertains to the McAllen Dam. As an additional note, the towns of Milford and Exeter are currently going through an impact analysis on dam removal. And she goes on, and basically it's an invitation, and again, clearly indicating that funding is available.
So Jim, I think you've been speaking for about 10 minutes, and I know you waited for 2.5 hours to do that, so I recognize that, but I think there's other people in the audience who want to comment, and telling us all the groups that support it and reading from the letters isn't necessarily going to sway, I think, how the Budget Committee evaluates it. You gave us the information at the beginning part that I think we understand we need, where you got the basis for the figure 4, why you're concerned about it, flooding. A lot of the conservation and environmental groups support it because it's going to provide better habitat, I'm sure, and experiences for them. And obviously, it's cost the town some money if we do the repairs, and landowners impacts their property.
Fair enough.
Is there anything new that you want to add really quickly?
Consolidate or at least give you other agencies that have responded briefly.
Just tell us who they
within
are.
60 seconds.
Sure.
And I won't read another one.
Okay.
Okay? American Rivers, Brian Graber, Northeast Director, River Restoration Program, again, letter dated March 14th to the town of Newmarket, the town administrator, indicating available funding for both a study and removal.
Okay.
Eric Hutchins, he's the Habitat Restoration Coordinator at NOAA. Yes, hands down. NOAA would potentially assist both technically and financially, either directly or through the partnership program. CCA, again, indicating funding available and those that they have already assisted. So in closing, I hope that we have shown that there is, at least in Milford's case, there's no cost to that town. The $85,000 is frankly, arguably highly inflated, but it was a safe number and an honest number, taking two gross values without consideration of any funding. I think it's just very, very important that we look at all alternatives and also, obviously, conduct the study and do some due diligence before we take any further action, regardless of where those studies may follow. And lastly, may I ask if, in providing these letters that are being sent to the town council directly, or those that I have, will these or can these be posted in the town hall so that other residents have the opportunity to receive or read their full content, which could be highly beneficial?
I believe that if they're received by the town, they'd be available underneath the right to know law, and how the council or the town administrator decides to post them otherwise is up to them to decide.
Ed?
Website, too.
You get them to us.
Great, so they will be posted. Excellent, thank you, and sorry for all the time.
That's okay. Thank you for participating in democracy. Think you have your hand up? No, I mean, it's better than one of the few people that's been at the meeting that we've never seen before. So.
Promise I won't be 15 minutes. I had a few questions, but my name's Alan Knight. I'm from 59 Exeter Street, Newmarket. I had some questions. I'll just put the question out first, then I'll make a comment. Is there a report already done where the exact nature of the faults of the dams is listed and what needs to be fixed?
Yes.
And has there been any outreach to any hydro companies, hydroelectric companies? I know you might have to go to Canada because there's a lot of Canadian firms in this business. And has that been done?
Yes.
There has been contact with at least one hydro provider to see if it's a feasible site for hydroelectric power. Yes.
All right. And who actually controls the gates of the dam? Is that the water department or?
I think Rick Malasky actually goes out and his crews go out and move them, but I think it's in concert with the state, right, Rick?
As anybody, that dam, there's been a dam there in some sense or another. We have the McAllen Dam there, but there's probably been some sort of dam ever since we stole the land from the Indians. But that whole system, all the way from Pawtuckaway Lake down, was made for hydroelectrics back in the 20s or probably before. So I would like to see hydroelectric being looked into. Also, there's a Federal Protected Scenic River Act that included now the Lamprey. Is that also above the dam, or is it below the dam?
It's from the confluence of the Piscassic and Lamprey River.
All right,
So
if you did away with the dam, and did away with the river, wouldn't that be some sort of federal jurisdictional problem that nobody's looked into yet?
There would be oversight by the Lamprey River Advisory Committee and National Park Service.
All right. Now I've got some other comments. One of the reasons we've had 3 years of flooding in 5 years because it's rained 3 years out of 5, more than it has in years. And I'm not going to try to sound like a greenie, but when all the glaciers are melting, the water's got to go somewhere, and guess where it's coming? It's going all over the place. And then secondly, Exeter, I don't think, is a place to emulate for water control because every time it rains, their sewer system overflows and they have to close the Great Bay. So I think we should look into hydro and do what we have to do to repair the dam. And if my math's correct, I was working on $500,000 instead of the $5,000 extra. But what they want to pay for this dream get rid of the dam study, that's 17% of what it would cost to fix it. So I think that 17% could be put to better use than some sort of let's get rid of the dam. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Anyone else from the public like to comment? Hey, Derek, I do want to listen to you, but I'm going to use the bathroom, so excuse me. Lori Ann's going to take over.
Okay.
That was real smooth.
Holding you in rapt attention already. Thank you. My name is Derek Sowers. I'm actually a resident of Durham, but I come tonight to speak a little bit to issues that were raised by James Phelps, just to bring some information to bear upon what a feasibility study is and the nature of the resources that are available to the town, to just do a feasibility study, understand the options, and if the town does find that that's beneficial to pursue dam removal, some of the options that are out there for funding. So I'm really here just to highlight what are some of the resources, and I will be brief. And I think, based on that this is a budget hearing, and you're probably thinking, okay, this is interesting, but why should we do this now? Why do we need to do a feasibility study at this point? And I think there's a couple things at play there. I mean, you do need to respond to the dam deficiencies. Also, the money that's being asked for from the town is really just, I think you should look at it as match dollars. So when you seek other grants to do a feasibility study or to pursue any sort of alternatives, you have money that you can say, in good faith, the town is putting some resources towards this. And that's what really gets commitments from other organizations to invest in your work. So it's a proactive approach. Also, if you look at trying to mitigate flooding, you're going to be potentially reducing damages, direct cost damages. And so that's obviously important. So I'm not really going to talk about the benefits. Some of the cost issues have already been discussed. What I really wanted to touch upon was that a feasibility study is not a commitment to remove a dam. A feasibility study is basically sort of a fact-finding mission, due diligence. I noted tonight when you were considering the issue of the bond for your water treatment system, that decision is based on good, careful analysis of the topic and assessing what's the cost benefits of all the alternatives that the town is looking at. So you really want to do that with dam repairs. If you're looking at extensive and expensive repairs, not just now, but for future taxpayers here in town, it's just prudent to look at the options before you at this point in time. And there are a lot of economic benefits to looking into dam removal. So that's sort of why it's relevant from a budget standpoint. And then briefly, I just wanted to touch on some of the technical assistance resources that are pretty extraordinary that are here in the Seacoast region. The organization I work for is the Piscataqua Region Estuaries Partnership. We're a national estuary program, so we work primarily on Great Bay and Hampton-Seabrook Harbor conservation issues. And we're part of this partnership to restore New Hampshire's estuaries, which is just an interagency working group that's really trying to share information, share resources, and become more effective at helping landowners do restoration projects. So we provide help with things like grant seeking to do the restoration projects, permitting assistance, understanding what are some of the design criteria, and long-term monitoring for success. So all that assistance is here through various organizations, and the Lamprey River and the McCullen Dam site in particular are very high priorities from a restoration perspective, so you wouldn't have any problem with assistance on that. And then I just wanted to provide a fact sheet. Basically, it's one thing to say there's a lot of resources out there, but this is a list of about 16 different federal grant programs that can provide, in some cases, up to $250,000 for dam removal projects. So there are a lot of resources out there and available. So I'm just really presenting that as a informational thing, and if you do opt to pursue a feasibility study, there's many partners that would work with you on seeing that forward. So I'll just leave these comments, if I could, Brian, with you. And
sure, thank you.
So on the letter, there's my contact information if you want any more information about towns that have done feasibility studies, how much they cost, where they were able to get assistance from, things like that. Yeah, thanks.
I'm going to give them to the council, and then we can get copies made.
I'd love to make copies for everybody.
Just a clarification.
Sure.
I just wanted to clarify a couple comments by Mr. Knight. One query. The Lamprey River Advisory Committee, Ms. Meeker, has stated that they would not oppose a dam removal, number one. Number two, they prefer a free-flowing river as opposed to an impoundment. Secondly, I trust that everyone did hear clearly by not only myself that funding is available where the study would not cost any money, let alone 17%, I believe was the comment, of a repair, as well as potential monies for a removal if it went that direction. And that is all.
I just have one question. If we don't need the $85,000, why don't you just withdraw the amendment? If we got all this other money where we don't need the town, then I'm a taxpayer here too. Why do we have to fund it if there's all that money out there?
I can address it if you like.
I think I think we have to move on. I think that's a good question to ask deliberative session, and I think that this provides the opportunity for the council. If you pass this, the council could still not do it, just so you understand. You can't force the council to spend money. You're only giving them the authority to spend the money for this purpose. They don't have to do the study if this passes. They would be foolish not to do something the voters endorsed, but they have the right to do that. Okay, anybody from the Budget Committee have any questions or clarifications? You sure?
Yeah, just one
Okay.
quick one. Did the study we already did for 100,000, did that indicate any alternate recommendations to the dam, i.e.?
No, the study that was done was not 100,000, I think it was $20,000.
Okay.
I think, Rick, is that right? It was more like $20,000, and it was to look at the repairs that were necessary due to the inspection.
Okay.
It was an inspection number.
Just addressed, I have a bad voice today, so sorry.
Sorry.
It just addressed the deficiencies with the dam.
Okay.
It wasn't studying.
As to alternate recommendations, none.
So the study that was done was to address the deficiencies of the dam.
To identify the deficiencies, okay. All right. And I would like to thank Mr. Phelps and the other gentleman that came up with all that information. I think it was great that the petitioner took enough time and did the due diligence. I mean, we just had a vote, and we have 7,000 registered voters, and only 800 showed up. So when you have someone doing the work in the diligence they did to get this information to the public, I think they should be commended. If it took 15 minutes or 50 minutes, I'd be willing to sit here and listen all evening, and I thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Steve Everett? And then Mr. Fitzgibbon?
Is there a specific time frame within which something needs to happen with the dam? I haven't heard anything.
No.
I haven't heard a specific time frame this evening
No,
yet.
there's a deficiency report from DES that says that repairs should be made. There is no drop-dead date by when they need to be made.
Thank you.
But, yeah, good point. Some of the repairs that need to be done are parts of the dam that are owned by private entities. Some of the walls and things that I know the town administrator has spoken with the private owners about repairing their portions themselves.
I don't see any other hands. Okay, so, anybody else from the public? I don't see any out there. All right, so, what is the will of the Budget Committee in regards to Articles 2 through 9 this evening? I was not here, but I understand that the discussion was previously that we would vote tonight on our recommendations.
I didn't know about that. That was a recommendation? I get asked that question, Mr. Chairman. I feel,
We should digest this one.
I want to digest this. I would like to have a second meeting. I haven't had a chance to talk about budget committee members because I was thinking about it yesterday. But I personally would like to have one more day to digress this because I feel in one way there's a lot of stuff that was talked about tonight. Secondary to that is that it would be, if I was sitting up there looking at home on the opposite side and I saw the vote going on tonight, my perception was, did you really listen to us? And you're making a decision right away. That would be one of my concerns. My biggest concern, this is an overload. I want to be able to digest it and then come back, because I have some things I want to tweak, and I couldn't do that until I started hearing tonight what the public had to say. So my wish is to have another meeting and not do anything else tonight.
Mine as well, but I would like to see that happen as well.
Okay, so how about we do a straw poll of who wants to proceed tonight? And you can raise your hand, and then who wants to proceed at another night? And we don't have that much time because it has to be done by like the 21st.
I have some comments I'd like to make that will not be long, but on Article 2 is, I have some serious...
Okay, well, hold on, Leo. I'm making the first decision we're going to make is whether or not we're going to discuss it anymore tonight and vote. So I would request, if you'd like to proceed with votes tonight based on the information you've received before tonight and tonight, please raise your hand and say aye.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Voting on the articles tonight. If you'd like to do that tonight, then raise your hand. Okay. It's 5 people saying, 6 people saying they'd like to proceed tonight. And then I'm assuming the remainder 4 don't want to proceed tonight? All right, now, what particular information do you think you're going to get outside of this meeting that we have not gotten that will help you make a decision?
It's not necessarily additional information I'm going to get. It's the information we got tonight. I want to be able to go back and look at things.
Can I ask a question? At the school meeting, we had a lot of stuff we took, and we voted that night after it. So there was
That
a
is
lot of
correct.
stuff that we talked
That
about.
is correct.
and
However,
I don't understand why waiting an extra day is going to make it much
I'll
different.
explain that to you. However, when you say that, on the school side, we have very little control. With special ed, with the contracts, and the money is pretty much well set. We don't really have much flexibility in cutting and moving and things like that. On the town side, yes, there's a little more flexibility there. I would like to exercise my right as a budget committee member and a citizen to digress this in. And I don't see what the big deal is that to do it one more night. And it wouldn't be very long, it'd probably be 45 minutes to an hour.
When the rest of us have multiple meetings a week and small
You're not
children-
alone, dear. So do
Well,
I.
mean,
Hey,
go on,
hey, Dana, respect her opinion, let her explore,
She's
let
coming
her,
across to me very much like, I want to do it now, and this is,
I
I'm
don't have a
just
right
trying
to, I don't have a right to ask
No,
you a
but it's,
question.
it's the manner, I think, in which you're doing it. That's all. Come on. Attitude.
And your manner is always received.
gentlemen and ladies, stop. You're acting like children, all of you, stop.
I disagree
Okay?
with you for a
You
second.
made the comment, it was heard. And you expressed your opinion, and you were heard, and everybody let you talk about it and express it. So, I'm a little, as the chairman, I have not participated significantly enough to feel like I have to vote unless there's a tiebreaker. I don't know if a 6-4 vote would be the best way to proceed with voting tonight, because I feel like 4 of you will feel disenfranchised. And I don't think that's the best. I don't think that's what everybody else is intending, but I don't think that's the best idea. I would have to say that majority of the information we got tonight was on petition warrant articles. There's not much new information on the other articles, so I don't think we really need to go to another meeting, but you feel like we do. So I'd entertain a discussion about that sometime this week, because the 21st is the day it has to be posted by, which is Monday?
Next Wednesday.
Okay. So before this weekend, we have to meet, and that means tomorrow night or Thursday night.
Why not tonight while it's still fresh in our minds?
Historically, it's always been done on the same evening as the public hearing. I can't recall another time we've ever taken a different night to finish it up. Is it going to take 2 hours? I don't think so.
Well, this is a committee, and we run by democracy and majority. If someone wants to make a motion to proceed, we will do that. I don't have the authority to stop that. I'm just commenting. Ms. Kiefer?
I'd just like to comment that I am committed to something tomorrow night, which happens to be a town council meeting, and I'm committed to something Friday night.
Thursday.
I have a commitment Thursday.
Brian, can I ask a question? When we vote tonight, we're also going to vote on the budget, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's my concern. I've got some questions, some things in the budget that I want to look at. That's all. I mean, if the majority wants to do it, I mean, go ahead, proceed.
Let's go ahead then. All right, Article 2 is the
What
bond
else can we do? It's a
for the
majority.
development of the McIntosh well. And Mr. Fillion, you said you had some comments. I'll let you start.
I have a lot of comments.
I don't think you need to go to the podium, Leo, because this
I
is,
think I do.
Nope, I'm gonna get this out of your way. Be careful.
you're welcome to go to the podium.
Careful, it's right behind you. Yeah.
Yes, my concern is basically this $3 million warrant article. When this was originally started, this was going to be required to meet our standards. As they run their tests, Emory and Garrett, if you read their reports, you'll find that they found that a lot of the tests with their long-term running, we were going to meet both the primary and secondary standards. So very lately, they decided, well, if we don't need the bond for that, we'll come in and we need it for the taste of the water. And I have some data here that I would like to show. And I guess I don't really know how to show it the best. I guess let me first read the Emory and Garrett conclusions of their study, and I'll show you the tables later. Figures 25 and 26 of manganese decreased from the 0.01 milligrams to 0.057 at the end of the pumping period. Chloride declined from a maximum of 320 milligrams to 200 to 220 milligrams, which is well below the 250 milligram requirement. Sodium dropped from 250 to 170, which is in the middle of their 100 to 250 range. The arsenic was below required primary standard levels from the beginning. It dropped during the testing and has always stayed below, so that is not a requirement. So now they're saying, well, we have taste problems. Well, I guess this is a picture, I don't know how to show it best, of the aquifer that they have come up with. And this is basically Hamble Farm Drive that I developed several years ago. And we've been drinking water out of Hamble Farm Drive now for many people for 20 years. And I guess this is the production of the McIntosh well of their 8-day test. And if you look at the production of the Abbott well, which is one of the wells right in the aquifer, they've been drawing down the exact same ratio as the primary well, the McIntosh well. And there's several other wells, the Bickford well, the Fillion well, whatever, also dropped down in identical fashion as the McIntosh, as the primary well.
While they were drawing off it, all those other wells dropped, is that what you're saying?
Yes, this is, they started pumping on the McIntosh well, and this is the date they started pumping on the Abbott well. As you can see, it dropped the same day, within a day, it dropped right down.
So, Leo,
during the pumping test, it stayed down like the production well did, and it went back up.
When you say it, is it water level or the contaminant?
The water level in the well, yes.
Okay.
The water level in the well, as they pump the Abbott well, dropped 40 feet. The Bickford well dropped 15 feet, and they're identical.
So are you saying that they're drawing water and they're taking out the wells in Hamel Drive?
No, no. What I am saying is it is the same aquifer that they are drawing the McIntosh well as the Abbott well, as the Bickford well, as the two Fillion wells. I put 12 wells in Hamel Farm in the past 15, 20 years, and if anyone went in there and tested any of that water, it is good water. Now, they're saying and it's the same aquifer that they're saying they're gonna get bad water out of. I mean, we've been drawing this water for 20 years. Everybody in the whole subdivision has been drawing the same water. It's good water. Everyone's, no complaints. There's 2 other subdivisions that are still in that same aquifer, and they're having no problems with water quality.
So you're basically saying you don't think it makes sense to include the treatment plant?
That's exactly what I'm saying. If you have the same water coming out of the same aquifer, why is the water we're gonna get out of the McIntosh well any different than the water that's coming out of all these? There's probably 40, 50 wells in that area. There's 4 subdivisions. And none of them are having water quality problems. Why are we going to draw, the town wants to draw the same aquifer and it's going to be undrinkable? Why? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And if you look at the test of this is the chloride test in a 44-day pump test. You can see how it was dropping down. This is the level required. This is your secondary level. It was dropping way down below the secondary level when they stopped pumping. It would have kept dropping for, I don't know how long if they kept jumping. Yes, it goes back up when they stop. It takes 4 or 5 days to run up. Emery and Garrett ran some tests on running it for 6 hours on and 14 hours off, and found that even the 14 hours off between the pump tests, the water level did not go back above the primary or secondary levels. So
You mean the contaminants? The contaminant didn't go back up?
No, they didn't go up above the levels that the state requires.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess that's one of my big concerns is that why is this water gonna be so much more terrible? 40 or 50 wells that are drinking out of that aquifer have been drinking out of it for, well, these 4 subdivisions for 20 years, and my wife's family been living there for 70 years, and they've always had good water. How come we're gonna have bad water when out of the same aquifer that everybody else is having good water coming out of?
I can't answer the question, but your point has been made, I believe.
And that's, you can look at all I had a whole mess of charts and shows the water qualities and everything, and how the arsenic has dropped. It was continuing to drop when they stopped pumping. And you look at the Emery Garrett report, and I will read it to you. They recommend one of their results, the result of the bromide chloride analysis suggests that relatively stagnant recharge conditions occurred near the production wells under non-pumping conditions, which they're saying is that stuff has been there for probably hundreds of thousands of years. And now you're starting to dump it out, and it's starting to drop and drop and drop. And they're saying extended pumping time will determine whether the ground recharge at low concentrations could be drawn. If so, treatment of chloride, arsenic, and manganese could potentially be significantly reduced or eliminated. They're saying is that the way it was dropping, there's probably no need to treat this stuff. And that's why I have a question as to why we want to spend over $3 million when the data doesn't substantiate it. I guess that's what I'm saying. And as you see, just the cost of the McIntosh well, just straight costs, wellhead and water main that Weston Sampson put out this past week, it cost $651,000 to build your wellhead and your water main, tying it into the unit. $600 the capital cost, $130,000 engineering, $65,000 contingency, which is a total cost of $800,000, with an OEM operation and maintenance, roughly $13,000 a year. You start, they've had several of the EDR unit, they're talking about, well, its common capital cost would be $751,000. Treatment cost be $1,143,000. Engineering, $380,000. Contingency, $189,000. In operation and maintenance at $66,000 a year. To me, the data does not justify this. First, they said we needed to do this because we couldn't meet primary and secondary drinking standards. Now, once we started meeting them, they started saying, well, this water is going to be real terrible. State man comes in and says, oh, worst water I've ever seen. I don't know if he's looking at the water before we did the extended pump test or not, but we are meeting our standards. The water being drawn out of that aquifer has been drawn out for over 20 years by hundreds of people, all with good water quality. Why are we going to get bad water when we put it out when everybody else is getting good water out of there? And you people must know people who live up on Hamill Farm and all those 3 subdivisions. Talk to them. I actually thought about bringing water in here today and saying, here, tell me what's the difference.
You should have.
You wouldn't be able to find a difference. But then they say, well, how do we know you got the water from? I said, well,
all right, thanks, Leo, for that. That's
and one of the
Leo.
problems, I don't believe this. If this gets voted down, no means no. You're not going to do anything with that well for a year.
Right.
In that whole area.
That's true.
And that's why I'm concerned that I really think I'm not against the McIntosh well. I'm for it. For it. But I just am not concerned, not feeling that I want to spend $3.5 million to do it. And
Okay.
I guess, I mean, I know.
I think that was a succinct summary of your position.
Yeah.
I do. I'm not being, yeah, I mean, after, we understand that you think that the treatment plant is not necessary based on what you've read in the report. You support this, you want that
Garrett
source.
says it's not necessary. It could be not necessary. They, of course, recommend further testing.
Right.
And you might want to consider testing to see how low these chlorides and these manganeses and these arsenics will drop. But, I mean, $3 million.
Okay, so Roseanne, do you have a question for Leo?
Did you have the water tested from the other wells for their content as compared to the well at McIntosh recently? Have you drawn water from, say, the Hamill well that you say is all from the same aquifer? When's the last time that water was tested? People can just have...
Personal wells were tested?
No, you said the wells that you have at Hamill Farm for...
Those are all personal wells.
They never,
Okay.
When Emery and Garrett did their testing, they put these monitors in 30
all the different wells,
wells
I understand that.
and measured the drawdown in relation to that. They did not do testing in each well. And I did not test each well.
All right, so I understand that you're saying it's all from the same aquifer, but I don't know how you can claim that the quality of the well from this particular one, they said there was a lot of marine sediment or whatever around it. It could be taking in more. I mean, you should get the water tested from the other wells to make sure it's...
My point is that this is good drinking water, and it's coming out of the same aquifer that we're talking about putting our town wells in. And I think the data shows when you pump the town well, and all these wells drop 40, 50 feet, and as soon as you stop, they go back up. It's, to me, a pretty good indication you're in the same aquifer.
Thanks.
Thanks, Leo. Sorry.
Now, I've been upset.
You got the podium.
I mean, last year, when we had a proposal last year for aquifer recharge, I mean, now they're saying $600,000 to study that for $4 million. Thank God it was voted down. I mean, they're saying now we need to diversify. That's $600,000 plus the $4 or $5 million, if it would have gone in, would still have given us one source of supply.
Right.
The Bennett Sewer well, it would have done nothing for diversifying our project. The council voted 6-0 in favor of it. The Budget Committee voted 8-1 in favor of it. I voted against it. Thank God the town voted against it.
All right, so, thank you, Leo. I'll share my opinion on it. This is one of the few ones I'm willing to entertain an opinion for myself on, which is I'd rather have the council have the authority to do the treatment plant in this article than not. I hope we don't have to spend the money, but this does not spend it. It authorizes the council to spend up to that amount of money.
If needed.
And I think Leo made some valid points. I'm not a geologist or a hydrologist, and we don't really know what exactly is going to come out of it until it is actually implemented. I think I'm very happy to spend $150 more a year, or $75, or whatever it is, somewhere in that range, to know that in the middle of the summer, when it's been hot for 3 weeks or 3 months and no water is falling from the sky, that there's going to be water coming out. That being my water bill for my duplex to about about $1,200 a year for the duplex. I'm willing to pay that for water. And I think $150, $75 to $100 per water user is pretty reasonable to get a new supply. I hope it's less than that, Leo. You made valid points. I'm glad to hear you're in support of it. I think we should support this warrant article, and I hope the council doesn't just do the treatment plant because they have the authority. They do it because the science says we need to do it. I also want to recognize that the EPA and DES often increase the stringency of water supplies after towns invest lots of money, and then suddenly you have to invest more. So we don't know what's going to be coming down the pike on some of these things. Anyone else want to share their comments or questions? Ms. Ryan?
I looked at the town council meeting when they discussed this. I was not available to be here. I looked at the meeting on the 24th of March on the website, which is very nice. I just think there's so many questions out there as to what it is, what's going on, what the real issues are, what the real problems are. And I have to agree with Leo that 3.370 is a lot of money to give the authority, and I don't know that we need to do it this year. I think that possibly we need to look at this a little bit clearer, and more investigation. And I know you've been doing it for 9 years, but I cannot support that, giving the authorization to the council to do this at this time.
Anyone else want to comment?
I know we need the water, absolutely, and I am so on the fence on this one, it isn't funny. I really.
I want to know what the specific things that you need to know to say yes.
Yeah.
If I was in the council, or if I was Sean, that's what I'd want to hear.
With what Leo brought before us tonight, that he feels that McIntosh Welland spend money to get it going, but not the portion of the money for the treatment portion of it, is how I understood it.
I agree that McIntosh, I agree we don't really need it. There's probably a 90% chance that we will not need it in the next 7 years. No, we've got plenty of water. If we get to a drought condition like we did a few years ago, yes, we'll be close. One question on the mills, another thing that came up is our water needs. Mills were using almost 2 million gallons a year for when they were running the last several years. So that 2 million gallons basically has gone offline when Suflex moved out here 2 years ago. So that's 2 million that can be used for the mills in the future. I mean, it's, I'm sure when they get fully developed out, they will be needing more than the 2 million that they've been using for the last 20 years or so. But I don't think the mills are gonna be going full bore within the next couple of years and all, so, that's, but again, getting back to, I think that we should spend the money to tie the well in million, well, they're talking $800,000. I didn't go with $1 million to put in the wellhead, put the piping in, tie it in, run your tests. You can always add these other treatments later. I mean, you could, if you see that, wow, this water, I just don't believe that this water is going to be any different than the water that has been pulled out of that aquifer for the last 20 years.
So when I asked my question, I knew what your questions were. I was more hoping that Judy or other members that don't want to vote for this would explain their questions or what information is missing. Just to help. I'm not challenging you to do. I just want to understand it because I didn't understand it.
Looking at the conversations that have been going on through the council meeting and discussions here and Leo's comments, I do not see the need for 3.3 million authority for the council to be given at this point in time. If in the deliberative session that we come up with a figure which is more in line with what Leo is talking about, is doing those kinds of improvements, I would support that, but I would not support the amount that's in this warrant article. I don't think that we can change that warrant article tonight. We cannot do that, but it's certainly at the deliberative session with the kinds of recommendations that we're getting from people who know what they're talking about. Yeah, but we're talking about a huge investment on the user's base, with and there's no expansion. There's no cost benefit that I see at this point in time for that amount of money.
That statement strikes me as there's no cost, there's no benefit to having.
I said there's no cost benefit at this time.
What do you mean
for
by
that amount of
cost
money?
benefit?
Because you're talking about when Leo is talking.
You mean
about
the additional money for the treatment plant? Because there is a huge benefit to having this water supply. I think we've all agreed to that.
I'm saying that. What I'm saying, going back to, is saying that Leo is just saying $1 million or
Smaller amount.
or whatever.
It's about 1.5.
1.5 is a reasonable amount to look at what he is proposing and with the information that he is giving us.
Okay.
We're looking here at an amount of money that to me is not giving us a great deal of benefit until we have more answers on the questions that have been raised to the council and to us as a budget committee.
The council would like to have a chance to provide some input on some of the comments that have been made. I think that would be helpful, and then we'll go back to the committee.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that. I understand the concerns everybody has, but if this were to be amended to say $1.5 million from the well, you might as well make it go to zero. Because I, as a council, will never vote to put that water directly into the system. I respect Leo Fillion a lot, but when I meet with consultants and with the chief engineer of a water company who says he would never put that water in his system and sell it to his customers, that's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear. And I know Leo has good intentions, and he's done a lot of good things. I happen to disagree with him completely. I've heard experts say that we need to treat this water or we're going to be giving our people unacceptable water. I don't think there needs to be any more discussion on that. To me, it's all or nothing, because the well, if you put the well in without treating, it will never be pumped into the system. You're wasting the money at that point.
I don't know who's.
How about a budget committee member over there?
Oh, sorry, Al.
It's okay. I agree that it's a very borderline issue for me as well. I've been on both sides of the fence. I've taken particular interest in this water system, both as a councilor and as a budget committee member. And it is borderline. I wish sometimes it wasn't. I wish we just absolutely didn't meet the standards, and then we wouldn't be having this decision. And I'm just wondering, as a practical matter, and I'm new to this council business, so I don't know what the rules and standards are, but my personal guess, I don't have a personal guess as to whether it's going to need to be treated or not, but I don't see why it would be an issue to go ahead and approve the expense. And before, I can't imagine tying this water system into our existing water system if it doesn't meet standards. So what I would think would make sense is to go ahead and approve it, get to the point where we've got things running, we've got the pipes installed, we've got the electricity installed, and go to Leo's point and assess it before we start doing it. He may be right, he may be wrong, but I think at the point where we should be able to make that decision and run a good, solid test on the system after it's up and pumping. So that's my thought. And at that point, get input from budget committee members and residents and water users in a public forum to hear the evidence.
All right, I'm going to just start next to me and go that way. So Lorianne, I saw your hand, and then I saw Drew's.
Judy, before when you were talking, I think you said you wanted to hear from people who knew what they were talking about.
Right. I don't believe I used those words. People who knew what they were talking about. And I know that there's been many experts, and I assume there's been a considerable amount of money that has been spent on this project to begin with, right, as of this date. So are we in a situation where we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't, and have to move forward because we've already spent X number of dollars, but I have no idea about that.
I just didn't know if there was people that weren't here that you were aware of that could speak to what you were talking.
No, I'm thinking that my point is that I think that there are many questions out there. One of them was just, one thing that Al just said was, let's get to a certain point and see where we are. And that's what I was saying, if we're talking about $1 million or $1.5 million, to get to that point, and if we find out that, yes, we have to move forward and do something more, then we talk about it this time next year, because that's what it's going to take when we had the information before from Sean, that it would be a long, this is not going to happen tomorrow. So if we get to a point where we know that we have to move forward, then fine. But if we don't, why are we approving this amount of money to bond? And then are we in another situation where we've got a bond out there for $3.3 million that we don't need? And then we have a 20-year, whatever number of years that we can't close down.
To clarify, you don't bond it unless you spend it. It's bonding authority. So, and then just the second thing, if I understood the schedule that Sean said, if it passed this May, it wouldn't be online till fall of 2012.
Right.
Which means that the well is not getting drilled till 2012, which means you wouldn't be voting next May. You'd be voting in 2013. Well, the whole infrastructure is going to take, the permitting process and stuff is going to take.
All right, so then, until
You're not
next
gonna be-
year or
you're-
the year after, whatever. But when we reach the point where we know that we have to move, that we're okay, or that we have to move forward.
Okay. Drew?
Yeah, first of all, again, I'll repeat that I'm one of the water users, and I appreciate the water that I get, and the price that I get it at, I might add. For me personally, as I've said before, I'm going to support this warrant article. I think it's critical for us as a community to have another water source, an independent water source. And if that requires treatment, then that's how it has to be. Personally, I don't know at this time whether or not it requires treatment. I'm not sure if any of us do. My hope is that by providing this authority to the town council, It will be brought to a level where it can be further evaluated if that is necessary. If it's necessary, they can proceed without any further delay. I'll be supporting this article.
Lee, I think,
No. Sorry, one more comment.
Okay.
That really what pushed me over on this past week is I was in favor of this if my first inclination was the council wanted this money to see if it would need to be spent in order to meet state requirements. And I was in favor of that. This past week, the comment has been sort of changed to, well, I think we should spend whatever is required to make the water better, which is almost a blank check. How much better do you want to make it? I mean, no, how good do you want to make it? Well, that's where my concern becomes, is that, yes, if we needed to spend $3 million to get this well to meet state requirements and get state approval, yes, I was in favor of that. When we're going to spend whatever we need in order to make this water better, that's a blank check, basically. It's not, I mean, how much better? Okay. How much you want to spend to make it better? $3 million, $5 million, there's no end to that. It can always be made better. What does it need to be?
Okay.
Reasonable.
Dana?
I have to agree after everything I've heard tonight. I'm on the fence, too. Even more so tonight, because I really kind of came in tonight with the fact that I didn't think we needed it, because we already know what the projections are. There's water there for the mills to come online. My biggest concern right now, and I think Leo is the one that's chipping me here, having a hard time making a decision, is that here we have a gentleman who has an extensive knowledge and background of water in this town for I don't know how many years. I've been in this town 45 years. And to hear him say what he said tonight kind of disturbs me, because if he's saying that the water is fine where it is, coming possibly from the same aquifer, but yet the engineering study is saying the opposite, one of the questions in my mind is, should we be testing those other wells, even though they're personal wells? Because if it's coming from there, why isn't it not going over there to the Hamel and all these other wells? So, in addition to that, I agree with Judy on the sense that, do we have to do it this year? Can we wait a little bit longer? I'm not opposed to the McIntosh well. But certainly when I was on the council, I supported it and wanted to see it go forward. But the economic time is a little more difficult right now. And I really do take exception to people who sit here and say, I can afford $70 to $100 more for the water.
You take exception to me speaking my mind about what I can afford?
I need to clarify that, and I'll tell you why. Is that we do, and I don't think we think enough of our residents who are on a fixed income. Yes, we probably need the water, but do we need it in the urgency to which it's being perceived? When you get somebody here who has the background and is stating something totally different. So at this point, I'm going to vote against it.
I know. Roseanne?
Like I said, I was on the fence.
I don't think there's a microphone in front of you.
I was on the fence. I listened to Leo, but the council in the town has been working forever to get a new water source. It's not going to be online for a couple of years. The ratepayers will be paying extra. I'm on the water. I have septic, but I've got water. And to have better quality water, if it's going to increase the, and like you said, they're always changing the quality of the water. I would have to say that I would vote in favor of this. I mean, it's something we definitely need, and if it's going to improve the taste of the water all around, why not put it in? And the council still has the discretion upon further testing to see if we really need it. But if it's going to improve the water quality and reduce the chloride and the sodium and the arsenic, I say go for it.
Yeah, but it would do the same thing in 1 year.
Oh, I'm going to let everybody speak once, and then we're voting. Larry?
We need the capacity too. Leo said we don't need the water, we need
She
the
wants the
capacity.
microphone back.
No, we need the capacity. There's not enough water.
All right, Mr.
I'm 100% convinced that we need another source, and we have for a long time. When you can't flush your hydrants, can't flush your water mains, that's not a good thing. I also am very concerned with what Leo had to say, but you have to place some faith in your government. You have to give authority to make things happen, and that people will do what's right because of that authority, and that goes to the town council. So I can't believe it would take a lot of money to go out into Hamel Farm Drive and test a few wells there to get a sample of each of those wells, and also compare it to what's out there at McIntosh. Same aquifer, should be quite similar, but that won't cost a lot of money, and I would assume the council would do something like that. So I guess I would have to say that I would be in support of this article.
You don't have to speak, but you're welcome to. I'm just making that clear.
He just wants to make that
I was
clear.
saying that to Kelly, not you. Jack, go ahead.
Anyway, I think that Leo made an excellent presentation comparing the source. And, you know, with the substantiation of everything, it seems like his suggestion is what I would go by. However, whether it was 100 other homes in the Hamel area or 200, and should we go the way he wants to go from the outset, I can imagine if I was living up that way, I'd be thinking all the time, was that just, we didn't complete the job? So I would go along with the fact that they should test the individual homes too, for everybody's sake. You know, if someone starts worrying about it up there and they don't have anything to say aye, yes, or no, whether it is or it isn't, it's pretty certain probably. I mean, I'm certain that well, not certain, but sure that the aquifer is in close proximity to that area, that it probably, without any question of a doubt, the water is coming from the same aquifer, and that's good. However, I don't know, but I would say that I would lean toward Leo's suggestion at first. Further than that, especially if the water turned out to be without any testing, everything was fine except for the difference in the levels of the personal wells. I'm going to be very selfish. I don't have a duplex, by the way, but I have paid probably about $9,000 or $10,000 in water bills since I've been on the lines. And recently, unless my 5th grade math has failed me, I think there's been an increase of at least 29% back a few months ago, and now we've got another $50 a year fee on top of whatever the increase is because of the cost of that bond issue. And I don't want to pay it because I don't have it.
I just have to say,
Kelly,
I am on this water supply, and I feel like the experts have been consulted, and I think it's an important step to have all the ducks in a row so that if it does need to be tested, it's tested, and it's already there. So I will be supporting this article.
Okay.
Another quick comment. Taking minerals out of water does not make it taste better. The minerals in the water is what gives it its taste. To just reduce the amount of various minerals in the water does not make it taste better. If you look at distilled water, all the minerals are out of it. Tastes terrible. If you've done any chemistry, whatever, that's terrible water. What gives you the taste in the water is the minerals in it.
Okay.
And it's good good, but just by saying, oh, we're gonna reduce these minerals in this water is gonna make it better, is not so. Thank you.
That was a good discussion. All right, would someone like to make a motion on Article 2? The motion would be to recommend it or not to recommend it.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend Article 2.
All right, is there a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
So that was Mr. Zink, seconded by Mr. Kefeber. We just did the discussion, so I hope there's no further discussion. So at this point, I'll call the vote, and if you're in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Wait, hold on, sorry, we should count. So can you keep your hands up? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes in favor. Those opposed, say aye and raise your hand. Okay, 4, that's Leo, Dana, Judy, and Jack.
I have to abstain.
And, yep, and Lorianna stands, so that's 6 to 4 to 1. Okay. I think that it's important to note for the public that the folks that voted against it support the site, but not the treatment plant, as I understand their comments. So they support having a new water supply. They're not necessarily convinced we need to do a treatment plant. And as a non-objective comment, if it passes the way it is, there's no guarantee there'll be a treatment plant. So that still could be, there's no guarantee there'll be a treatment plant. There's the option. I learned in my years on the town council that good decisions rarely come after 10 p.m. And I'm exhausted.
That's why we.
So,
Why we said that?
well, actually, that's not why anybody said that. You all said you had questions that you needed answered out of here. You didn't say because we're tired, but we're tired. So we can vote to continue this meeting so we don't have to repost it. And I would suggest either tomorrow at like 7 o'clock or Thursday at like 6 o'clock.
Tomorrow at 7.
We're not gonna continue it now?
That's what I'm suggesting is, I'm not going to stick, we're going to be here another hour because I'm sure that you guys have, we're not going to just peacefully vote on each warrant article.
Tomorrow at 7.
Tomorrow at 7.
So how many people can make it tomorrow at 7 o'clock? Tomorrow is Wednesday. The council has a 6 o'clock meeting that I've been invited to and Drew's been invited to. And,
I won't be able to.
okay. So how about Thursday? Is Thursday night a possibility? Who's it not good for on Thursday night?
What?
Who cannot make it Thursday night?
All right. I'm sorry, Kelly.
I don't care, believe me.
What do you have happening now? I can help get rid of it. School board meeting?
I don't think that's germane to the conversation.
That's good. I like that. You should be running the meetings. All right, so,
I'd like to make a motion that we move the next.
Continue.
That we continue the budget hearing to Thursday, March 17th at 7 o'clock.
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I was hoping earlier, but 7 o'clock's fine. No, 7 o'clock's fine. All in favor of continuing the meeting? 7 o'clock on Thursday.
And you have to wear a green hat.
Thank you. At this point, we're going to be meeting on Thursday at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
We're not adjourning. We just continued the meeting.
Oh, that's right.